Good Victory Monday afternoon, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk with Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero. We are here with you for the next 3 hours, talking all things Kansas City Chiefs, NFL, KU, K-State. So much to get to from what might have been. In fact, I'm not even going to put might have been on it. I'm not even going to use a qualifier. That was the best sports weekend of the entire year, and I don't really think it's all that close.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue that, wasn't it?
It was unbelievable. NFL action was incredible. Game after game after game after game. We didn't have a single game all weekend that was decided by more than 11 points. And the game that was decided by more than 11 points, by the way, was the Bengals coming back from a 17-0 deficit to beat Tom Brady at Tom Brady's place. That was unbelievable. We will talk all about the NFL weekend. Unfortunately, the incredible amount of NFL football included arguably the best team in the NFL nearly losing to the by far worst team in the NFL, the Chiefs and the Texans, respectively. We'll talk about that game coming up here in just a matter of moments to lead things off. We'll also talk all about the NFL weekend with Matt Verderame of Fansided.com. He's going to join us bottom of the hour as he does every single Monday. Man, there's a lot to get to from the NFL this weekend. That Chiefs game in particular, frustrating game to say the least. We'll break it all down here in just a minute. A lot of college basketball to get to from the weekend. KU walloped Indiana. Indiana did not get to do what it wanted, which was get the ball down low to Trace Jackson Davis, bang down low, and win with physicality. They were not able to come close to being able to do that in that game. KU was the better team for a full 40 minutes. It was awesome, so we'll get to that. K-State with a good win over Nebraska. Got a little bit hairy at the end, but came away with the victory. Dan was there. I was at the KU game, so we'll talk about both of those. Had some in-the-building perspective on each. The MVP race in the NFL. We'll get to that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, too, part of our just massive amount of NFL to get to today. Just within the last 2 hours, there's been a lot of movement in Vegas, apparently, on odds for the NFL MVP. There's also been a lot of movement on a certain game coming out of the NFC East that involves one of the favorites to win MVP this year. Do we have a reason why things are looking weird with Jalen Hurts right now?
Not that I can put my finger on, but you put 2 and 2 together and would maybe start to strongly suspect that perhaps there's a question about Jalen Hurts' health at the present time.
Jalen Hurts was right there with Patrick Mahomes, very close. In fact, some books even had him as the favorite to win MVP after last week, as we got to. That has since flipped, and the Eagles are a 5-point underdog to the Cowboys?
Yeah.
That's odd.
Yeah.
Very odd.
That line's moved by 4 points, and per, I believe it's FanDuel, Vegas's odds for Mahomes winning MVP have jumped the line. They've gone from plus 150 to minus 150.
Hope you got it within the last couple of hours.
Right?
Wanted to jump on that. So we will get to all that on the NFL coming up throughout the show today. Also got Monday Night Football tonight, a game that kind of has implications for one team, sort of, but it's a team I care about. So we'll get to all of that today. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We've got What Is Wrong With You. It is our final week of What Is Wrong With You. We do not have a show on Friday, so Thursday we will have to find our monthly winner for What Is Wrong With You.
So we'll crown a weekly champion tomorrow? Because Wednesday we've got an abbreviated program due to K-State basketball.
Yeah, and then Thursday we'll just get through the entire quote-unquote playoffs for the month. So just today and tomorrow for this week on What Is Wrong With You. Things always get a little weird at the end of the year because we got days off for the Christmas holiday. We'll be gone for a couple of days celebrating with our families and loved ones. So we will get What Is Wrong With You sorted out for the week tomorrow and for the year coming up next week. So we cannot wait for that. We'll also recap the whole weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly this hour. It is all coming up on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. You are welcome to be a part of the program, as always, via the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. That's 785-272-WIBW. And you can watch on YouTube as well. Our channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. We're live streaming the show. The comment section is open. Let us know whatever you're thinking about whatever we are talking about on the show today.
Advertise your cams with us in the YouTube comments too.
Yeah, we had some spam bots checking in a little bit earlier during
Mic'd Up.
I'm not sure what the guys were talking about today that elicited that, but
we can only imagine.
Yeah, I'm a little scared to go back and check the tape of that one. So we'd love for you to participate on the text line or on the YouTube as well. This was, again, the most incredible NFL weekend that I can remember. Every game was close. We had 3 different walk-off touchdowns. You don't get more than a couple of those in a season, and generally they all happen in overtime. And the Chiefs one did. The Chiefs one did happen in overtime, and we'll get to Jerick McKinnon's heroics here, along with Frank Clark. Give him credit. He came up with the big play, the biggest play of the game yesterday. We had 2 regulation walk-off touchdowns yesterday, which is just unfathomable in the NFL. It was an incredible weekend. Little bit of not a ton of movement, but a little bit of movement, especially as you got toward the bottom of the playoff picture, both in the AFC and in the NFC. Don't look now. The Dolphins have fallen all the way to the 7th seed. They are behind the Chargers because the Chargers got them last week on Sunday Night Football. Chargers had I don't know if it was an impressive win. Justin Herbert was impressive in a low-scoring win. I'm not sure anything else about that game with the Titans was impressive. So you had that. Some NFC drama yesterday on Sunday Night Football with the Giants knocking off the Commanders.
The Manders. I made the executive decision on Friday's show. They're the Manders.
Okay.
So the Guardians, and the Pelicans are the only professional sports teams in America in the Big Four that have 3 or more syllables in their nickname, but don't have an accepted shortening, like the Cavs for the Cavaliers or the A's for the Athletics, and so on and so forth. We don't have one for the newly christened Washington Commanders, and I think commies is a little rough. So
yeah,
what about the Manders?
The Manders, okay.
I think we're just going to go with the Manders.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah,
I can accept that. So the Manders and the Giants last night had some drama. The officials decided they were done with a couple minutes left in the game.
They quiet quit on the final Washington drive.
They really, really did. And they're like, yeah, you're onside. No flag. Pass interference. Nah, smash interference, whatever. But we had a great weekend in the NFL. The unfortunate side of it, we have someone who comments the Mandies. I think that's like 2 steps to a nickname. But
last night they came and they gave without taking.
Nice. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Unfortunately, the Chiefs are a part of that, not because, wow, the Chiefs scored 98 points. It's a new NFL record against the worst team in the league. No, unfortunately, they had to go to overtime with the worst team in the NFL. And we've got potentially some breaking NFL news about the favorites out of the NFC, but it is not confirmed, so we will not get to it right now. But a TV producer from Philadelphia seems to indicate, this is from the East Coast, seems to indicate something might be wrong with Jalen Hurts' collarbone.
Yeah, I'm seeing this too.
We will get to that as this goes on because...
Yeah, we'll wait for like Rappaport or a Schefter or somebody like that to nail it down.
But, I'm banking on this breaking in 15 minutes. We can talk about it with Matt. That's my goal here, 15 minutes. The Chiefs should have killed the Texans this weekend. And we said late last week, and we talked about this on our Chiefs live stream yesterday as well, the video of which you can go find on the YouTube Sports on 580. The Chiefs had a tough game, or at least should have won by more against the Broncos. They messed around. They let the Broncos get back into that game. The Texans played a game they should have won against the Cowboys, and they yacked it away late. That should have been a wake-up call for the Chiefs, as we assumed it would be, and that should have probably been the last time that the Texans really put up a fight like that. Not to say they're not trying, not to say those guys aren't fighting for their jobs, but we talked about it Thursday and Friday last week. That is an awful roster. That is like tanking 76ers level of roster.
Yeah.
It is awful from top to bottom, and especially without Stingley, who was their number 3 overall pick last year, Pierce, who's their best offensive player, and their top 2 receivers, both of whom are actually pretty good.
How many guys for that Texans roster, for their starting 22 that they rolled out there, how many of them would start for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Of the guys who played
this week for the Houston Texans, how many of those guys would get into the Chiefs starting starting lineup on either side of the ball. Because the best I can give you is like 2 and a possible.
I would say of the guys that rolled out there yesterday, good Lord, I would say 2. I'd give you a solid 2.
Yeah.
Maybe 3. Are we taking Kaimi Fairbairn over Harrison Butker right now? I might give you 3.
Based on yesterday's evidence, yeah, that might be your 3rd. But like,
I would give you Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah, Tunsil
over Orlando Brown
at a tackle spot.
That.
Yep, and Jalen Petrie.
Jalen Petrie. Yeah, I have the exact same 2.
Yeah.
So, damn, man, that's bleak.
Yeah, that's what we're working with here. Like,
that's like what we used to say on KU football and the rest of the Big 12.
That's the talent advantage that the Chiefs had going into yesterday. And when you have that kind of talent advantage, you would expect to see things like the Chiefs average a bunch of yards per play. Well, they did that. They averaged over 6.5 yards per snap. That's pretty freaking good. They had over 500 yards of total offense. We got a phenomenal Patrick Mahomes game. We got that. Like, those are things you would expect. Those are things that you got. You would expect the Texans offense to have a lot of problems moving the ball. They did. On average, they averaged less than 4 yards per play. When you do that over the course of a 60-minute NFL game, you're generally kicking some righteous tail when it comes to defense. If you can hold the other team's offense to less than 4 yards per snap. How in the hell did we wind up with that in the box score? And yet that game was in overtime with the Texans having the ball and needing just a score to beat the Chiefs.
And they got an opportunity because the Chiefs had to punt.
Yeah.
In overtime.
Because they ran the slowest developing 3rd and 4 play in the history of the NFL, and it got Mahomes sacked.
Blake Cashman has been like the ultimate jag linebacker ever since he got into the league. Hey, make it into the league 3 years, I think it's been, out of Minnesota. Good for you. That's already a good career for a late draft pick. I had not heard his name since I was doing draft stuff 3 years ago. And he comes up with the biggest, what looked like it might have been the biggest play of the game. And I thought, oh my God, ultimate generic Madden player Blake Cashman just sacked Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs are going to lose to the Texans. Oh my God.
As our texter from the 913 puts it on the Big O Tires text line, the Chiefs almost got beat by the replacements.
They really did. That truly is like what that felt like. Nigel, whatever his name, Nigel Gruff was out there about to kick.
I would start Shane Falco over either Davis Mills or Jeff Driscoll.
Fact. He's got heart.
He can't coach that.
I don't know that Jeff Driscoll does, although Bill Cowher would tell you he does. God, CBS's halftime is bad. That's beside the point. The Chiefs end up winning because Frank Clark, who has been quiet for a little while now, maybe a long while, came up with the biggest play of the game, and he knocked the ball out. That's what defensive ends are supposed to do, especially in the era of throwing flags for every time you hit the quarterback. Attack the ball more than you attack the body. Clark did the right thing. Willie Gay did an amazing job of getting that ball. I don't know how Darian Gumbawale did not recover it, but Trent Green pointed it out on CBS. Gay just essentially reached through his legs and swiped at it over and over until he was able to pull the ball away, which was tremendous.
And what have we been begging this defense for, like the last 2-3 weeks?
It was the number one thing I asked for on Friday. Do anything. Prove you can do it.
Go make a play with the game on the line.
Yes.
Like, go make a play when you've got a chance to go win the game defensively. Go make that play. And so the fact that they did, we got to give them some credit for that. We got to give Frank Clark and Willie Gay a lot of credit. That was a back against the wall moment, and they took the ball away. And one play later, the Chiefs win that football game, and you get out with a road win, and the defense deserves the credit for that. So we're giving them credit for making a game-changing play. And again, you're looking at the box score, and it's a one-sided box score game. How in the hell did we end up in overtime with the Chiefs and the Texans?
It's inexplicable. Patrick Mahomes had the most efficient day for that volume of passes in NFL history ever. 36 of 41. He had 20. We undersold him on our post-game show yesterday. He had 20 straight completions to end the game. He was 36 of 41. His passing chart from Next Gen Stats is unbelievable. It is truly incredible. And yet it went to overtime. Jerick McKinnon on an individual level had a great game. Travis Kelce, 10 for 105. Juju, 10 for 88. McKinnon had 122 total. He and Pacheco combined had 219 yards of offense in the game. Multiple touchdowns. And you went to overtime with that team? We have a question from the Big O Tires text line, from the 402, that asks, was the Texans game a massive red flag for the Chiefs? I feel like truly in a vacuum, you might say no, because you did everything right. Some lucky breaks went the Texans' way. The officiating was god-awful. I'm not blaming the officials for getting the game to that point, but it was god-awful.
It was Carl Cheffers against the Chiefs. And at this point, you almost have to bake in, when Carl Cheffers is the head official in the Chiefs game, that the Chiefs are going to have to overcome some adversity in that department.
And look, I understand that it sounds a little conspiratorial, especially if you're not from this area. I thought Kelce went a little bit over the top with the shoving when he got thrown, that 15-yard penalty thrown on him. I thought, like, all right, Travis, chill. But at the same time, you can't tell me that there was no connection between a quick flag coming out on that penalty and Travis Kelce saying that Carl Cheffers couldn't wear the stripes at a Foot Locker.
7 years ago.
Yeah, you too many connections there. So yes, the officiating was horrendous. It was bad. Cheffers should not be put in a position to referee Chiefs games or any meaningful NFL game going forward. That should be the case. It won't be, but it should be. I think we can all agree on that. But again, in a vacuum, you could say, all right, terrible officiating. Some lucky breaks went the Texans' way.
You're -2 in the turnover department.
Bad fumble luck.
Yeah, bad fumble luck leads directly to 14 Texans points. The box score told one story and the scoreboard told another story. And in a vacuum, you just kind of say, well, thankfully you overcame all the stuff that piled up against you. Like one of the least penalized teams of the league, ending up with 10 penalties, double what they average on a per game basis, and the fumble luck and everything like that. You can, like you said, one game, you shrug it off. In a vacuum, you shrug it off. Say, boy, thankfully you overcome those things. And we discussed this on our post-game wrap-up yesterday, which you can find on our YouTube page. You can find on our Twitter account at SportsOn580. At some point, you're waiting for this team to develop championship habits.
Exactly.
And you're waiting for them to flip a switch, and it keeps not happening. And it's running out of time for this group to do that. You can't count on it happening in January. You have to start developing those habits now, like the teams that went to the Super Bowl did in 2018 and 2019.
In a vacuum, you're probably not all that concerned about yesterday's game in the long term, but there is context. You're not in a vacuum. That is 3 games in a row where the biggest takeaway is, man, the Chiefs just kind of messing around, huh? They're just kind of, they're playing with their food. You can use that cliche, or they're bored. You can use that one, whatever you want to say. 3 games in a row. The Bengals game. Coming out of it, we said, all right, we're not all that worried. Chiefs made some mistakes. The Bengals played phenomenally.
They lost by 3 to a good team on the road. That you got sometimes in this league.
Then the Broncos game. On the road, they're up huge. They let the Broncos back in when there was no need to. Brett Rippon throws a touchdown late in that game. Okay. Divisional game is the biggest game of the Broncos season. Russell Wilson played well for the first time all year.
On the road in Denver, hard place to win historically. Yeah.
This is the worst team in the NFL by a lot. Their roster is FCS level. They're not going anywhere. At least one of those quarterbacks who played yesterday is not going to be on their roster next year. And probably neither should be.
Half empty NRG Stadium, and the half that was full was largely in Chiefs red. It sounded at times like a Chief home game when the Chiefs made plays. So, yeah, eventually you run out of excuses as to, hey, why aren't you looking like the team you need to look like if you're going to win a Super Bowl?
And I know that we talk about how, the postseason's what matters, and the playoffs are what matters for this team, and they'll be tuned up for that. Are we sure? I know that's the idea, but this has been the issue now 3 seasons in a row. This was the issue in 2020 that, they'll turn it on at the right time. Well, I know they had other issues. They did make it to the Super Bowl. They got crushed, but there were mitigating factors. There were extenuating circumstances. Last year, though, even during that long win streak, it was, they're winning, but not impressively in any of these games. Push came to shove, biggest game of the year, AFC Championship game. They melted down at the wrong time. They never were able to flip the switch, so to speak. This is another example of that, and I don't know why at this point, and I apologize if I'm being a prisoner of the moment here, but I don't know why I'm supposed to believe that this crew is different than the last two that ran into these same issues and then met an untimely end late in the year.
Because it feels more like those than it does the championship winning team. And it's about championship habits. It's about what championship teams do. And again, not every championship team is perfect. From my own personal experience, I remember getting very upset when that Seahawks team that won the Super Bowl 48, they went behind 21-0 at home to a winless Tampa Bay team relatively late in that season. I think it was a November home game. Mm-hmm. And they went behind 21-0 to Tampa Bay, who had not won a game and was starting Mike Glennon at quarterback. So again, this isn't any given Sunday league, and we know this. Mm-hmm. But when the Sundays where these habits are starting to stack up, where you have the tendency for self-sabotage, whatever that looks like, whether that's a miscommunication on a third down play that would have kept a drive alive, whether that's a penalty on a third down that keeps the drive alive for the other team, even if the call stinks. Some of those calls did not stink. Darius Harris almost pulled a guy's jersey off on third and 10 from inside the red zone. So that's a penalty. Carl Jeffers or not, that's a penalty. Maybe it's a turnover or multiple turnovers, and you're -2 over the 60 minutes of regulation in the turnover margin. Those little tendencies keep adding up in ways that just make you wonder. We know what the ceiling of this team looks like. They put it on display even in the course of that game. The defense, again, made a play with their back to the wall. The running game continues to click. They went on a 97-yard touchdown drive. Mahomes was unreal good, and Kelsey and Smith-Schuster were both terrific. I don't think either of them dropped a target. 10 targets, 10 catches for both guys. There's a lot of good, and the ceiling remains high. But the tendency for self-sabotage makes you really start to wonder if they'll ever get to that ceiling.
This might seem like an odd comparison. We got to get to a break here. We got a very busy 3 o'clock hour to get to. I've got a really good friend who's a Yankees fan. And the entire second half of the year, not even All-Star break on, like June on. And the Yankees had won all those games early, but then, their hitting kind of took a bit of a dive, and they were making dumb mistakes, and they really floundered their way into the postseason. And all year, he just kept waiting and kept being told by Yankees people, no, too much talent, this team's going to be fine. No, they're still a World Series contender. No, this still might be the best team in the AL, all this. They got to the playoffs, they never turned it on. It just never came. They did have all the talent in the world. They had the MVP. Giancarlo Stanton's awesome. They had good pitching. They had all these dudes. It just didn't turn it on. And I had the same worry late last season that if you spend this much time just saying, yeah, we'll be fine, eventually we'll get it, what happens when you have to have it? Why should we have trust that you can get it done in those moments? Struggling against the Texans, that Texans roster, the worst roster, one of the worst coached teams, one of the least disciplined teams in the league, to go to overtime and truly be on the precipice of a loss. If they score, they win. That's awful.
And you know what? If they'd beaten Denver 38-10 last week and then gone out and done that, you'd shrug your shoulder and say, letdown game, trap game, whatever you want to call it. But it's a continuation of a theme.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to.
That's where we're at right now.
We've got a text in from the 785. Maybe the Chiefs aren't winning impressively, but who is right now? That's a fair point. A lot of close games. This weekend, great example of that. Text line's on fire. A lot of you guys chiming in. We'll get to as many of these as we can coming up here over the course of the show. YouTube comments as well. We've got one here from Vance that says, Dan, nice hoodie. Go Thanks. Green Wave. Dan wearing his Tulane hoodie. He says Riptide, the Pelican, might do a better job than Carl Jeffers officiating a game. Also, we got to add real quick, and Barbara brings this up on the YouTube comments as well. 55 was offsides yesterday in that game.
They played all the hits,
I laughed so hard when that happened. I was like, oh, my God, 55, and he is offside. Oh, no. All right, we've got to take a quick break. A lot of NFL to get to. Matt Verderame will join us in just under 10 minutes. We do have the good, the bad, and the ugly coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. Big edition of the good, the bad, and the ugly here on 580 Sports Talk as we get ready to talk to Matt Verderame of Fansided.com. Our weekly recap of all things NFL. My good for the weekend, Dan, was I went 5-0 gambling on Saturday.
Hey now.
KU with a dominant win. Got a couple bowl games right. Shout out to Florida for just deciding not to play offense for a full 60 minutes in Las Vegas. That was nice. Fresno State, Jake Hayner, our guy. NFL games were awesome. That was a good weekend for me. Felt pretty darn good.
Good for me. I was in Kansas City for the Wildcat Classic on Saturday night. K-State welcoming in Nebraska. That was an excellent basketball crowd at the T-Mobile Center. The announced attendance was just over 13,000. Great purple contingent. Also had a pretty good contingent of Husker fans, which you would expect. They didn't have near as much to cheer about, but they were vocal as well. Jerome Tang said after the game it felt like an NCAA tournament game, and it really did kind of have that vibe in there with the big arena. The third deck on the sides was full both ways. It was a really good crowd on Saturday night, and we'll talk more college basketball a little later on, but further evidence that K-State Nation, such as it is falling back in love with its basketball team.
Bad for me, there was one bad game the entire weekend in the NFL. Every single game had interest or intrigue except one of them, and that was the midday game on Saturday. Browns-Ravens, I wish that game had just never happened. Like, take a tie and just don't play. Also bad, Deshaun Watson. He's not good. That's a good bad, though.
I thought you were going to say Cardinals Broncos. At least we weren't foisted. That wasn't foisted upon us as a viewing option. But that was a wretched game. And the under didn't hit. Broncos under bank and trust is closed.
At least it had a little chaos at the end. Like Ravens Browns had nothing at all. 16 points and a backup quarterback.
Yeah. That is my bad, by the way. The Broncos under bank and trust. Trace McSorley walked in with a bomb strapped to his chest and detonated it. And the Broncos under bank and trust is in ruins.
My ugly real fast is that the Raiders won a game on the worst play in NFL history. The Patriots, they are my ugly. Also, how about a real quick secondary good for you? KU just landed a top 10 recruit in the state. One day after decommitting from Arkansas, Eudora's Jaden Ham just committed to KU moments ago.
How about that?
That is awesome for KU.
My ugly was NFL officiating. It was really bad. It was terrible, starting in the Minnesota-Indianapolis game and all the way through the Giants-Manders game. Just an awful, awful week for NFL officiating all the way around.
That is pretty fitting ugly. We'll talk all things NFL coming up after this break with Matt Verderame of Fansided.com here on 580 Sports Talk.
for a change, all right?
Matt?
You just don't understand football, Marge. Matt.
Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
How can you not be romantic about football, man?
Matt Verderame covers the entire NFL over at fansided.com. His work can be found over at that website, including the Stacking the Box column, quarterback rankings, and so much more, power rankings as well. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, we'll get to the Chiefs here in just a moment and what was an unbelievable weekend around the NFL. But I do have to bring up first, because this is breaking news within the last half hour or so. Jalen Hurts sprained shoulder against the Bears this weekend. He's going to be out for a little bit. Not sure how long exactly. What's your initial reaction to that news for one of the MVP frontrunners?
I mean, look, for Hurts, obviously, he's okay. If I'm the Eagles, I'm not playing him the rest of the regular season. There's no point. There's absolutely no reason to play him. Like, why? You're playing Dallas this weekend because of Dallas's loss against Jacksonville and Philadelphia's win on Sunday. That division is cooked. I understand that the Eagles still have to win one more game, or Dallas will lose one more game. I get it. If I'm the Eagles, he's going near a football field this week. And then going forward, look, if you need to win Week 18 or something, okay. Gardner Minshew is one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. I'm sure they can go in there and win a football game with Gardner Minshew. So if I'm Philly, he's sitting at a bare minimum this weekend, probably next weekend. And then look, if you need the game, you need the game. I don't think they will need the game at that point come Week 18. And then, of course, obviously with him in the MVP race, him and Mahomes, if he misses a game or two, I think that's probably it. I mean, Mahomes, unless he just has a horrendous showing here over the next couple of weeks, I think he's going to run away with it. There's nobody else who's really in the mix. So if Hurts misses time, I think Mahomes is probably free and clear.
And you brought up the point, too, just a moment ago that I was going to follow up with, Matt, and that is Gardner Minshew is more than good enough. With how good that roster is, how well they're playing right now, yeah. I would imagine they might still go 2-1, if not pull off a 3-0 in their final 3 games with him at quarterback.
Yeah, he's a terrific backup quarterback. If he started all year for them, they might have won that division. Like, that's how good they are around the quarterback. And the reality is, again, if you're Philadelphia, all that matters is winning the Super Bowl. You don't care about any of the rest of the stuff. You're going to be the 1 seed. They've earned that by being 13-1. So if I'm the Eagles, I mean, all I care about is getting Hurts healthy and then going and win the Super Bowl in January. And for people who say, well, what about momentum? Look, I'm a big believer in momentum. I'm not one of these people who doesn't think it exists in sports. The Saints in 2009 were 13-0, lost their last 3 games, and won the Super Bowl. Like, if I'm the Eagles, I don't care if I finish 14-3, 15-2. None of it matters. Like, they've done their job in the regular season. Now it's a matter of going out and win the Super Bowl, and that means getting Jalen Hurts healthy.
We're talking to Matt Verderame of fansided.com, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. All right, let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs then. They won this weekend. They did indeed beat the Texans. Didn't feel like it was going to happen for a while. In fact, it came very close to them not beating the Texans this weekend. How worried are you about this team at the moment? I know they keep winning. They're 11-3. That's really good. They are still right there in the hunt for the number 1 seed in the AFC. I would still argue they've got the best chance to get that number 1 seed, given how tough Buffalo's schedule is the rest of the way, including a matchup with the Bengals. But this is now close loss to the Bengals where they shot themselves in the foot, held on against the Broncos after they never should have even been in that game in the first place, Denver. And then they barely beat Houston and looked like they were sluggish and slow pretty much the whole game, except for the quarterback having the most efficient game based on volume in NFL history. Where's your concern level with this team right now?
Relatively high. Look, I understand the people, many of which were former players, who will say to you, hey, look, when these games come to the playoffs, they will ratchet it up because they know what's at stake. And right now they're a little bored. And they're just going through the motions, and they're doing enough to get by. And that could very well be the case. I'll be the first one. It would not surprise me at all if the Chiefs look like this the next 3 weeks, and they muddle through, and they go 14-3, they maybe get the 1 seed, and then they play a team in the divisional round, and they absolutely kill them. Wouldn't surprise me. But my concern with the Chiefs is some of this stuff now is becoming a distinct pattern. The defense in spots has played really well the last 2 weeks, but you can't really sit there and say they've played well when you give up 8 to Denver and 24 to Houston. Your yards per play is great, but that doesn't matter when you give up 52 points and 2 worst offenses in football. The other thing, and frankly the thing that really concerns me the most, they just cannot stop turning the ball over. I mean, it's become an epidemic for this team. They have played 14 games this year. They have 12 games, at least one turnover. And they have not had a game without a turnover since they beat the Raiders in October on Monday Night Football. It's every week. They fumble the ball. They make careless mistakes. That's the kind of thing that becomes a habit. And if I'm the Chiefs, that's what I'm most concerned about. So, do I still think they can win the Super Bowl? Yeah, absolutely. They're one of the 3-4 best teams in the league. But I think to not be concerned at all is to just bury your head in the sand with them right now.
Our guest is Matt Verderame of FanSided, covers the National Football League, writes the weekly Stacking the Box column on Mondays, and produces the Stacking the Box podcast as well. You can also check out his work with Arrowhead Addict. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. You can hear him every Monday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, wild week in the NFL. Just about every game left you with some sort of talking point coming out of it. But I want to go back to the first game of the week, where the Indianapolis Colts had a 33-0 halftime lead and lost the game. Is that more a credit to the Minnesota Vikings, or is that more a reason why you should perhaps not hire a television pundit to coach your football team midway through a season?
Yeah, I think it's C, all of the above. But it's funny, actually. I was on a flight. I took off right before the game started. And so in my head, I just figured, Minnesota's going to win the game. Well, maybe it's close, maybe it's not, whatever. Minnesota will beat them. And I landed, and my father was coming to pick me up, actually, and he texted me as I'm getting off the airplane. He's like, hey, it's 33-0 Colts right now? And I was floored. Like, I read the tweet the text 2 or 3 different times. Like, what? We get in the car, we're driving. About an hour later, I turn on the radio, and the game's in overtime. So I was just stunned at the turnaround. Look, I think ultimately that game completely encapsulates the Vikings. Like, the Colts are there. The Colts stink. Look, they never should have been up 33-0. And then they showed why. They should have never been up 33-0. But the Vikings, the first half is the argument that everybody's had all year long about why the team's a total fraud and they're going to get beaten in the first round of the playoffs. And the second half was every Vikings fan screaming at everybody else, like, this is why this team's so good. So I'll say one thing for the Vikings. If you look at them in the fourth quarter this season, they're unbelievable. Like, their point differential on the years +2, it's in my column. I don't have it in front of me. I think their point differential in the fourth quarter is like +70. It's unbelievable how good they are in the fourth quarter and how terrible they are in every other quarter. So I guess it kind of tracked just in a historic way on Saturday.
I'm looking at your column right now, Matt. They are 119-50, +69, a very nice fourth quarter scoring differential this year for the Minnesota Vikings. That was not the only game that was a tale of two halves. Tampa Bay played as good a half as I think I've seen them play all season. Jumped out to a 17-0 lead against Cincinnati. Cincinnati scored the next 34 points. Are the Bengals right now playing better than anyone in the NFL, or at least in the AFC?
Yeah, I think at least in the AFC. I don't like them ahead of Philadelphia. But the Bengals are funny because I watched that game as it was unfolding. And if you watched it, the Buccaneers completely dominated the first half. I mean, it wasn't like a flukish thing. The Buccaneers took it to them for the first 30 minutes. 17-3. Like, okay, maybe it's one of these days where the Bucs finally find themselves a little bit and the Bengals don't play well. The Buccaneers then proceed to fake a punt from their own 23-yard line, and they are all on the same page except for Giovanni Bernard, who is unaware he's supposed to catch the ball and run with it. And so he fumbles. It's technically not a turnover on down. Then the Bucs, on their next 4 possessions, 2 picks, 2 fumbles. Like, I don't know whether they give the Bengals credit for that or that was just a Chernobyl-level meltdown by the Bucs. Like, I don't know how you want to look at that. But I'll say this for the Bengals. They don't beat themselves. That team, I don't think they're as talented as Buffalo or Kansas City. I think they're close, but I don't think they're quite as talented. But the Bengals, they don't beat themselves. They're really well coached. They make really good adjustments. And if you beat yourself, and the Chiefs and the Bills do it a lot, those are the types of teams that you look at and go, how did they lose to? Well, because you turned the ball over and you took 9 penalties and you didn't adjust. So I think the Chiefs have the highest ceiling in the AFC. I think the Bills have probably the most complete roster in the AFC. But the Bengals are probably the most consistent team in the AFC. And I'm going to be fascinated in a month to see which one of those things wins out, which one of those 3 teams goes to the Super Bowl.
The AFC South race is tightening. Jacksonville gets a dramatic win over Dallas, coming back from 17 points down and winning on an interception late. And Tennessee losing late to the Los Angeles Chargers. Who'd you rather be in that AFC South race right now, the Titans or the Jags?
The Jags. Absolutely. The Jags. Not even close. Because, look, I'm not trying to jump on the Jags bandwagon, but the reason being, they have a much better quarterback. Lawrence is playing the best football he's ever played in his life, or at least in the NFL in his career. Tannehill's beat up. They have no receivers. They can't score. I mean, Tennessee just flat out can't score. It feels like a team that has always been very well coached, but a team that has just kind of reached its limit. I don't know that Tennessee's got anything left in the tank. Maybe they reach back and they find a way to hold off Jacksonville. But if I'm Jacksonville, I'm looking at this going, okay, Tennessee and Jacksonville, they both have Houston remaining on the schedule. The other game that they have remaining on the schedule, the Jags play the Jets on Thursday in MetLife, and Tennessee plays Dallas. There's a very good chance this thing's coming down to Week 18 at Jacksonville when these 2 teams get together. And all Jacksonville's got to do is be within a game at that point. If they win, they sweep the series, and so they win the tiebreaker. So to me, if you're Jacksonville, destiny's in your own hands. You have the better quarterback. You're playing a hell of a lot better because Tennessee has been a mess for a month. And I'll tell you right now, if I'm a Chargers team, a Dolphins team, the Ravens, whoever's going to go to the AFC South winner in a wild card game, I'd rather see Tennessee a million times out of a million. Not that I think Jacksonville is a huge like Super Bowl threat. I mean, that's not going to happen. But they can score. Like, they've got a real quarterback. They're also well coached. I'd rather see Tennessee than Jacksonville at this point if I'm somebody who's got to go play, go face them.
We're chatting with Matt Verderame of Fansided.com. He joins us every Monday, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, to talk all things NFL here on 580 Sports Talk. Find Matt on Twitter at Matt Verderame, and, of course, go check out all of his great work at Fansided.com. Matt, what did you think of the way the Patriots-Raiders game ended?
Oh, that was something really special. That's the dumbest play in NFL history.
Yes,
I
I
tweeted that last night. That is, and I tweeted that, and people of course respond with like their own. And somebody said to me, "Well, what about Jim Marshall running the wrong way?" I'm like, "Look, that's a really bad boneheaded play, but he didn't try to do that." Jacoby Myers willfully threw the ball 25 yards backwards to Mac Jones. My question on that is, let's say Mac Jones catches that ball. Now, he's ineligible to throw it forward. What is he doing with the football? Where is he going with that? Jacoby Myers, maybe he just didn't think about that when he threw it. I don't know. That is, to me, not to pile on poor guy, because God knows he's going to have a rough week. That is the dumbest play I've ever seen in an NFL game. I mean, I've seen plays that you just shake your head and go, what was the guy thinking? That takes the cake. And it basically eliminates the Patriots because they're not going to the playoffs. They still have to play Cincinnati and Buffalo. They have no shot. And for the Raiders, I mean, tanks your draft pick a little bit, but at least you had a lot of fun with it. So, they get a win, and they I guess technically stay alive for another week, although they're cooked.
I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. We're getting on 22 hours since. I can't stop thinking about it. I don't know that we will ever see that again, Matt. That might be the only time in our lives we see a play end in that dumb of a fashion.
I'm so mad at myself because right before that play, I was flipping around. I'm not a big red zone guy. I watch it every once in a while, but I try to actually focus on a game.
Mm-hmm.
I like to flow games. So I'm watching that. I'm also trying to watch the Chargers and the Titans at the end of the game. I'm also a sad and angry Knicks fan. The Knicks are on the final minute of their game against the Pacers. And I'm trying to click in just to catch the last minute of the game. And I watched the Raiders and the Pats game, the final 10 minutes of the game, all the way until the final play. Because I'm like, I was going to overtime. I'll just cut back for overtime. And all of a sudden, my phone just starts exploding with all these people who are like, "You see that? That's the craziest thing I've ever seen." And of course, by the time I went back to the game, they're showing the replay. So I'm annoyed at myself that I missed it live. But that is, I mean, of all teams, like of all the teams in the world, if you said to me, who's the team that made the dumbest play in NFL history, it would not have been the team that's coached by Bill Belichick. And yet here we are. And to the Raiders, like, what would the odds have had to have been for you if somebody said, look, the dumbest play in NFL history is going to happen with the Pats and the Raiders? What are the odds that you would have needed to think that the Pats were the team that committed it? Like 100-1? It's incredible how it shook out.
Matt Verderame covers the whole NFL for Fansided.com. Check out all of his great work, including the Stacking the Box column over at Fansided. You can follow Matt on Twitter as well, at Matt Verderame. He joins us every single Monday here on 580 Sports Talk to talk all things NFL. Matt, as always, we appreciate the time. Enjoy Monday Night Football, and Merry Christmas to you and yours as well. We'll talk to you coming up soon.
Hey, Merry Christmas, guys. Take care.
That is Matt Verderame from Fansided.com. Awesome stuff, as always. I was waiting that entire conversation to talk about that play.
They said the Patriots might have been his last guess. The Raiders would have been my first.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone's first guess. Oh, yeah, that's Raiders. Josh McDaniels, Raiders? Absolutely. We got plenty of college football, some MVP race, and what is wrong with you next hour on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you on this December 19th, 2022. This is our final Monday show of the calendar year, by the way. We are off next Monday, getting a day off following Christmas Day. This is our final Monday of 2022. How about that?
Yes, it is.
We've only got, and if you include today, I believe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more shows, I think, over the course of the next 2 weeks.
And you're getting shorted Wednesday of us anyhow.
Yes.
You are, however, getting a little matinee K-State basketball. So
yeah, 1:30 tip-off. You don't get many of those.
Well, it's a doubleheader. The women tip at 11 a.m. and then the men follow at 1:30. So I guess that could be later, like the women game goes double overtime or something crazy. But
yeah, who are the? I don't even remember who.
The men are playing Radford. I do not know who the women are playing.
Yes, they are. I did know they were playing Radford. The women are playing. Ooh, this is going to be a tough one. Morgan State. What do you know about the Morgan State women?
Precious little. As of 5 seconds ago, that they were playing Kansas State on Wednesday.
That's about all I know as well. I would love to know how this game came about. Like what the connection is between these two schools that made them want to schedule each other. I do not know anything about the two of them. So that's who the women are playing coming up on Wednesday. So it'll be the women. You'll hear them right here on 580.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll hear the men immediately after right here on 580. And then when that is all done, you will hear the two of us coming up on Wednesday, or at least one of us is going to be here. So someone will show up for the 1 hour we're on the air. Someone will be around. Maybe we'll just be like, hey, Kyle, you want to stop in? Kyle Manthe, jump in, get Fulton to do it. Someone will be here. There will be live programming for you coming up on Wednesday. But we are running low on days throughout the rest of the year. Wishing you and yours a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year once that eventually comes up.
Happy Hanukkah to those who observed.
Yes.
That started last night, I believe. So,
yes, Happy Hanukkah. A lot of holidays around this time of year. So whatever you are celebrating, if you are celebrating anything, hope you enjoy the festive season. And again, we will be off on Friday this week and Monday next week. We will have full show tomorrow, full show Thursday, short show on Wednesday, and then we are off Friday as we head into the Christmas break. Coming up this hour, while we are here on 580 Sports Talk, we got a lot of college hoops to get to. KU and K-State both with wins over the weekend. We will talk all about that here just momentarily. We've also got What Is Wrong With You, and we'll take a look in on the state of the MVP race in the NFL.
a very different segment than the one that we planned to do before we went on the air.
Yeah, we thought we were going to do, Hurts is still going to be right there, but he didn't have a great weekend, and Mahomes had awesome numbers. I found a tweet that had all sorts of numbers that were just like, hey, look at all these things Mahomes has done better than Hurts this year. He should be the MVP. And now it's over pretty much. Like this, it's going to be Mahomes unless he really struggles the next 3 weeks and Joe Burrow plays the best football of his life. It's going to be Mahomes for the second time in his career.
If I open my handy dandy FanDuel Sportsbook app, promo code Lucero, and I go to season awards, Patrick Mahomes this morning was plus 150 to win the MVP, and Jalen Hurts was minus 150. As of right this second, Patrick Mahomes is minus 350 to win the award, and Jalen Hurts is plus 700 with his injury.
It's going to be hard to win the award if you miss the final 3 weeks of the season.
Being minus 350 is like, that's an acknowledgement that the race is all but over.
Yes, I would agree with that. That's like the Heisman odds, right? Week after week, they just kept getting like bigger and bigger. It was minus 300 for Caleb Williams. Then it was minus 1,000. Then it was minus 3,000 at one point.
Right.
Like, no, there's not a discussion. It is over from this point forward.
There's a reason those numbers are what they are. Like you can try and have a debate and you can stump for your candidate, but the numbers are what they are out in the desert for a reason.
So we will talk about the potential, maybe still existing race for the MVP coming up a little bit later on this hour. If nothing else, it is an awesome look at some stats that Patrick Mahomes has just been dominating in so far this year. But we will start this hour with college basketball. Let's start with KU versus Indiana. I still wish this game had not been at 11 a.m. on ESPN2. I know there was a bowl game. I know we had to watch Scott Satterfield's next team versus his old team, and his old team just whooped up on him. That was a good call by you. You were all over that one from the very beginning. That made both of us a little cash this weekend. KU also made me some cash this weekend. They crushed Indiana. I mean, that was not... It was more of a game than the week prior because Indiana was trying. Like, Indiana made an effort defensively.
Indiana knows how to play basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't doing what you described as JUCO defense. By the way, I shared that quote with Larry Latimer going into high school hoops on Friday night. He said, "Oh, I played JUCO basketball. I know a little something about that." No, just a little bit. Said back in my day, we used to try to keep teams under 90. That was JUCO defense. So I think that was pretty apt for Missouri. Self said it after the game on Saturday. This was the best KU has played all year. This is the best they've defended all year, and they played better than they did in that Missouri game when they scored 95 points. I would actually agree with that because Indiana, they're slumping, and I understand that. They lost Xavier Johnson during the game. It looked pretty nasty, and I believe I didn't see this actually unfolding from where I was, but people who could read lips, supposedly watching the broadcast at the end of the game when Mike Woodson and Bill Self were shaking hands. Apparently, Self asked what happened to Xavier Johnson. I guess from the amateur lip readers out there, Mike Woodson said broken foot. I don't know if that's the case. If it is, that sucks. That's a really good player. That's one of the better point guards in the Big Ten. That obviously hampered Indiana. They weren't all that good when he was on the floor, though, at the start of that game. Trace Jackson Davis was in hell. He ended up with 13 points.
8 blocks.
9. It was the
9?
Chris Tyson, KU's SID for men's basketball, said after the game in the media room, that is the most blocks by a KU opponent ever. One player, 9 blocks.
He was very impactful on that end of the floor in the second half when the game was mostly decided. But he was very impactful in that way, and is the reason that KU didn't get into the 90s like they did against Missouri.
I mean, that was their best offense. And Bill Self said that, too, that, hey, Indiana's best offense in the second half was Trace Jackson Davis block a shot and then get a run out with numbers. And, I mean, that's true. They got back within 10 at one point. The very large Indiana fan contingent at Allen Fieldhouse got loud one last time, and then they went back to being sad because KU scored 18 of the next 26 points, made it a 20-point game, and that was it. And the game was over from that point on. Trace Jackson Davis was a preseason All-American, came into the game shooting 64.5% from the floor, 16.8 points a game. He did not score a basket until the final 89 seconds of the first half. There was a minute 29 on the clock in the first half when he dunked a lob, and those were his first 2 points of the entire game. KJ Adams was awesome. When he was out of the game and KU went a little smaller on Jackson Davis, it worked out super well. Zuby Ejiofor gave some good minutes too. Now,
it was a good Zuby game, yeah.
It was very good Zuby game. He was excellent. His energy was so good. It sort of feels like he's jumped Uday on the depth chart a little bit, which, look, you need one of them to be playing well and to be able to give you 10 to 12 good minutes off the bench, and you'll be fine. Was
it him or Adams that caught? There was one play, high-low, screen and roll, dive to the rim for the big man, and DeJuan Harris's bounce pass was low, and it's the kind of pass that sometimes, no matter how good your big man is, that's a tough catch for a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Zuby.
I believe it was.
Who plucked it clean and flushed it down with 2 hands. I said, oh, if he's doing that, he's going to play a lot more.
They have a tremendous rapport for a guy who's a veteran with, believe DeJuan's a fourth-year junior or a fourth-year sophomore at this point because he redshirted and then got the COVID year, and a guy who is in his freshman year and has played only not even a dozen games of basketball at the Power 5 level. They have an incredible rapport. And again, like, KJ's been great. He has been so good despite as a true 5, despite not being tall enough to be a true 5. His offense has come out of nowhere to be I was hoping he'd score like 6 a game. He scored in double figures 4 games in a row. His defense is awesome. His energy is great. He's got to come off the floor at some point, though. So you can play a handful of minutes where Wilson is your 5 offensively, and McCullough can guard anybody. He can handle guarding a 5 on defense. And then you get, again, 10-ish minutes, 10 to 12 minutes out of Zuby or Uday in any game. Those KU defensive rotations are nasty. That was the best defense I've seen from probably any college basketball team all year.
they had a really good game plan. With regards to Jackson Davis, he's bigger than KJ Adams is, just like size-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell Indiana wanted to set him up shop on the block and get him the ball, let him, work back to the basket kind of offense, kind of old school offense. Him and Race Thompson, their other big man. That's what they wanted to do. And instead of doubling the post, I think a lot of teams would just, okay, fine, we'll double the post or we'll double on the catch. KU was doubling before the entry pass. It looked like a lot of times, like the ball would go in the corner, pretty simple, pretty simple stuff, pretty elementary offensive basketball. Rotate the ball, play outside in, rotate the ball to the side of the big man, lob it into the big man, let him play back to the basket. A lot of teams will respond to that by, sending somebody else down from the opposite side. You dig on the catch or you double on the catch. KU, though, they were sending a defender out at the passer. They were saying, if you're going to pass the ball inside to Jackson Davis, you're going to have to do it through two or three of us. And that forced a lot of turnovers and a lot of steals. KU ended up with 17 steals, which is a preposterous number of steals. And
most in at least a decade for KU.
I was just really impressed with how they carried out that game plan. That negated what I felt like was Indiana's biggest advantage in the game, was the fact that they could go a little bit bigger and try and force feed the ball inside and get some easy baskets. I thought that would be something that Indiana was able to do. And KU just had the perfect wrench to throw in those bicycle spokes. And that kept, when Indiana couldn't do that, they didn't really have a plan B. Like plan B was, well, I hope these threes go in. And a couple of them did, but not nearly enough to stay with Kansas, because a lot of Kansas's shots were going in. Grady Dick had an excellent game. Kevin McCullough played really, really well. Like, you can't pick out. DeJuan Harris had that game on a string in the second half. Another just super point guard game from him. Like, you can't point. There's nobody you can point to on that KU roster and say, yeah, they were substandard, or yeah, they played a poor game, or yeah, they weren't. Maybe Jalen Wilson would be the guy you'd say that about, if it's anybody.
That's the most impressive part about this whole thing for me. Jalen Wilson had his fewest points of the year. He had 11 points, which, by the way, pretty impressive to this point with this schedule to have been in double figures every game for a guy who has been, I think, better than even many people expected. He went 4 of 18 from the field and 1 of 6 from 3. And KU beat a top 15, now top 20 team by 22 points. That is incredible. Harris was phenomenal. He had a quote post-game that I thought was very funny. And someone asked, hey, what was working so well? Because he didn't score in the first half. In fact, he didn't play much in the first half because he got 2 quick fouls. And by the way, you want to talk about someone else who played really well?
Bobby Pettiford. I was just about to say, yeah.
He was awesome.
Bobby Pettiford played a really good game.
And DeJuan was at, what started working for you? Because he had 3 buckets in a row at one point. He had 6 straight KU points. And he said, well, that was just the scouting report. We knew their big men like to drop off, and I knew I was going to get an easy shot every time. And he hit floaters on 3 straight possessions from 8 feet away or whatever, and it worked every time. He's got a great floater. His 10 assists in the game, tied a career high. A couple of them were true highlight reel plays. You could not have asked for more from KU. And now you've got one more tune-up game against Harvard coming up on Thursday. And then Big 12 play begins on the 31st, taking on a tough Oklahoma State team. I don't think KU right now is the best team in the country. I think rightfully so. You give that nod to UConn or you give that nod to Purdue. I think you can make an argument either way. If KU is going to defend like that, though, and can get an even scoring distribution from the McCullough, Harris, big man, that group of players outside of Wilson and Dick, who are going to play well offensively more often than not, I mean, KU's a Final Four contender again, and there's no doubt about it.
What basketball at the end of the day is about attacking, like any game. You attack weaknesses, and you try and take advantage of your own strengths. And with as good a game coach as Bill Self is, maybe the best X's and O's guy in the country, and with the different skill sets that are on display, the switchability out on the wings, the shooting, the scoring inside, the Swiss Army play that KJ Adams gives you, they are going to be really, really good at doing that to every opponent they play, attacking their weaknesses, taking away their strengths. That and I thought that the Indiana game was a really, really good example of how good KU can be at that.
It was an awesome game. It was truly, truly awesome. By the way, a follow-up to my best friend's mom, who's a diehard Indiana fan, who I was talking about on Friday. I posted the game story, which, by the way, if you'd like to read it and hear audio and see my post-game stream, you can do so at 580wibw.com. I posted it on my Facebook page, and she commented on it and said, congratulations on the win, but I was so broken up about it, I couldn't even read the Indiana recap of the game. And I thought, yeah, that's fair. That's totally understandable. There were a lot of Indiana fans who made the trip, and there were a lot of sad Hoosier faces at that game. A lot of them. Probably before we even got to halftime. K-State, you were there at the T-Mobile Center on Saturday for what was, I think, a pretty good win for K-State. I mean, Nebraska's not great, but they're also not awful. They're playing better. They've got a real head coach. They've got at least one or two players who are real talents at this point, which they haven't had in recent years. That's a pretty good win for K-State. And I thought a resilient win, too.
Yeah, control the game for most of it, even when they went scoreless for a little over 5 minutes in the second half, and Nebraska whittled a 19-point deficit down to, they got it down to 7 in the final minute and change. It never felt like K-State was going to lose. Like, it never really felt like it was in danger because they just defend too well to give up a 14-0 run or a 15-0 run. Like, they're going to figure something out. And when it did get a little nervy, when it got down to 9 with, I want to say it was close to the under 4 timeout one way or another. When it did get a little nervy, Naquan Tomlin hit a big 3 to push the lead back to double digits. And that was really, it took any vestiges of doubt out of the game. I thought over the course of the 40 minutes, you saw all the things that K-State is good at, which they're very active on the defensive end. They're very long. They can switch everything. Mm-hmm. Even with Marquise Noel out on the perimeter, I mean, obviously, he's not a real big guy. Like, you're not going to switch him onto some bigs, but he's so pesky that you can still switch screens with him on the perimeter, and he makes it hard, and the recovery of other guys how hard they work makes it hard to say, okay, I'm going to switch him onto a big. I'm going to take that big into the post and post up Noel. No, K-State's too quick to respond to that. They don't put him in bad situations. That's what good coaching does, and having 4 really long, switchable defenders around Marquise Noel does. So they're really active. I thought they played a really good defensive game. They never let Nebraska get into anything. Not a lot of easy baskets for them. Not a lot of uncontested, 3-pointers for them. And K-State in transition is a lot of fun. Man, yeah. They can get to the rim and they can throw it down. They had a couple valley hoops late in the first half. When they're running off of misses and they get into transition, they get with numbers, they are ruthless. And that's where they're going to run up the kind of point totals that they're going to need when Big 12 play rolls around. You also, I think, saw some of the negatives for Kansas State when the game did get into a half-court game. A 19-point lead, and you can understand, like K-State, you're not trying to run when you're up 19. You're slowing the game down. You're taking the air out of it. Eating up some shot clock is important at that stage. But when you do that, you get into playing a half-court game, and K-State's half-court offense at times really gets boggy. And if you don't make a 3-pointer, then sometimes they don't really have a good answer for how to score on the interior. And that was the case against Nebraska, who I'll say this for Nebraska, they're well coached on defense, and they don't give you a lot of easy baskets in the half court. Like, they are long and they're tenacious, and they really deny the paint well. So they made it hard for Kansas State to get easy baskets in the half court. And when the shots stopped falling, K-State shot the crap out of it from 3 in the first half. When those stopped falling in the second half, that's when you had that 5-minute drought. So K-State's got to be a little bit better, I think, in the half court so they don't have those long scoring droughts. And the other thing they're going to have to develop, and Jerome Tang talked about this in the post game, is they're going to have to develop more depth because it's really hard to go through. We talked about this with regards to KU. Like, when you get to the NCAA tournament and you've got a 6 or a 7 player rotation, you can do that for 3 weeks and win a championship if they're the right guys. But over the course of the Big 12 season, you're going to need like 8, 9, maybe even 10, like, playable guys. And after the game, Jerome Tang essentially said, look, the guys we're playing right now are the only guys that are, he used the term bought in, but like, they've got 7 playable guys right now. Bebe Ezeola's coming back from injury. He could have played. Jerome Tang kind of made it sound like they didn't want to play him if they didn't have to. Yeah. But he could have played on Saturday, and they'll probably bring him back in rotation. Ish Massoud is deep in La Casa de Perro. Man, he is way in the doghouse. And there were some post-game comments, and you can hear them at 580wibw.com because we have post-game audio from that and a recap of that game. But it's very obvious. Ish Massoud has some work to do if he wants to rejoin the rotation.
And I don't mean to kick a guy while he's down. But based on the style of play that K-State is playing, and based on the style of play that Jerome Tang wants them to play, and the roster built around him, there's like no one in the world who's surprised by that, right? Like, he did not exactly light the world on fire in 21-22, his first year with the program.
But I think he should be a fit because he's 6'8", switchable on defense, can shoot a three. Like, that's a useful player if he's all the way invested. And Jerome Tang said, without saying as much, that he's not right now. And so, like, that needs to happen. Like, if somebody other than, like, if it's him, maybe it's Dorian Finister, one of the freshmen, somebody is going to have to be some playable depth for them. They're going to have to get to the point where they can play, 8 or 9 guys, because over the course of a Big 12 season, you need that depth. But the one other thing that, and I kind of brought this up in Good, Bad, Ugly, that was a really good crowd in Kansas City. You had a good Husker contingent. You knew you would, but 13,000 plus, a lot of purple, and they're into it. Like, this isn't a passing fancy, oh, hey, neat, they're playing in Kansas City, I guess we'll go. It has been a couple of years, and Kansas State fans have wanted so much to fall back in love with their basketball team, and they have a team that is reciprocating that affection, because not just the way they play, because it's entertaining when they get out and run. They're an entertaining watch, much more so than the last 3 seasons under Bruce Weber. But it's the things, both little and big. Little, like, you can tell how much those guys enjoy being around each other, playing with each other. You can just see it. You can tell that it's a close-knit group, that the chemistry on that bench is real good, that those guys are invested in each other and like playing with each other and care about each other. Little things like that, and then big things like Jerome Tang doing the Wabash with the student section after the game, standing at the foul line in front of the student section, a full student section, and doing the Wabash, the whole thing, like the whole song, just him. You would talk about dance like nobody's watching. Everybody was watching Jerome Tang. He was on the big screen at the T-Mobile Center, and he's dancing like nobody's watching. He's doing the Wabash with the students, and they asked him about after the game, like, what was that all about? He says, did you see how many kids were there? Essentially, they're on their Christmas break. How could you not? How could you not return that love with the love that they showed right back?
No, it's appreciation. It's gratitude. I mean,
it's a really neat thing that's happening. This relationship. You're still very much in the honeymoon phase right now with Jerome Tang, this basketball team, and K-State fans. And if you've been hesitant, if you're a K-Stater out there who's been a little bit hesitant to fall back in love with this basketball team, if my permission means anything, you have it. This is a team that is worthy, and a coach that is worthy of your affection, of your entertainment dollar. Like, this is a fun basketball team. I'm still, like I said, we were talking about it before the Nebraska game. Am I convinced they're going to make the NCAA tournament? I'm not convinced. But the route is there. The path is there.
This is going to be the best conference in college basketball again in the Big 12, probably by a lot. But this is not a year where it feels like any one team is going to be, like, untouchable. Like Baylor when they won the national title. I know KU got them at home. They lost a couple down the stretch after their COVID problems. They felt untouchable. And I, in retrospect, felt really dumb betting on Gonzaga in the national championship game because it was pretty obvious what was going to happen.
Kansas felt that way in the COVID year. You know, before COVID shut it down, Kansas had that feeling of inevitability.
Absolutely. Baylor last night struggled against Washington State, which my wife went to Washington State. That's not exactly a basketball school, okay? Right. There's not a lot of the phrase want to, not a lot of that in the Coug basketball program, okay? Baylor struggled with them in what should have been a home game because they were playing in Dallas, but just like games at the Farrell Center, nobody showed up because they weren't playing KU. So, I mean, this is a havable league. There are anywhere from 6 to 8 Big 12 wins out there for K-State. There absolutely are.
And if they beat Radford, they get to 11-1. If there are 8 Big 12 wins, and that would include if they go 7-11 and win their first tournament game. If there are 8 Big 12 wins for K-State, then that's probably a tournament team. Like 19-13 probably gets you to the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, the 19, one... Oh, I'm sorry.
20-13 definitely gets you to the tournament.
The one loss isn't like a great loss because Butler's okay. They're not special. But I mean, other than that, 11-1 in non-con with it, Florida's beatable. You can beat Florida when you get to the Big 12 SEC challenge coming up. What's Florida? Florida right now, according to the KenPom numbers, is 45th in the country. That's 7 spots ahead of K-State. That's a winnable game.
Yeah.
That absolutely is. You go 11-1, maybe even 11-2 or 12-1 in non-conference. That's a really good start of a tournament resume.
Yeah,
it really is.
That gets you in. As a Big 12 team, that gets you in. Then all you're talking about 7-8 conference wins. And yeah, those are out there because there's nobody that you should feel like, especially, I mean, I got the vibe from the T-Mobile Center on Saturday. If the crowd's at Bramlage or anything like that with that kind of energy and that kind of verve, then that's gonna be a tough place to play this year.
I think
Where
it will
it
be.
really hasn't been the last couple of years.
By the way, Keontae Johnson, your Big 12 newcomer of the week for the second time this year.
Oh.
It's going to be really weird that 2 of the best players in the conference are both named Keontae.
Right?
Because Keontae Georgia Baylor's awesome.
Yeah.
They spell it differently, but it's the same name.
Yeah.
That's
23-10 for Keontae Johnson. He had his way with Nebraska. And it's interesting because Nebraska was a school it looked like he might end up at. That was one of his finalists.
Yep.
And he talked after the game about how, there was some speculation that, guys were chirping him from the Nebraska bench. It's like, no, a lot of the chirping was on court. And it wasn't chirping. It was like, hey, man, how you doing? Like,
yeah. But you can see why Jerome Tang and company wanted him to be the focal point of this team. He's got that ability. He's got that skill, and it's been a perfect fit up until this point. We've got to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll talk some NFL later on this hour, but after this stoppage, we will get to some What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. running out of what's wrong with yous for the year 2022, at least in terms of number of times we're going to do the segment. We're almost done with the year, but thankfully there are no shortage of stories to get to in what is wrong with you. And we've got two going head to head today. I will go first, and I will take us to Manchester, New Hampshire, where an Amazon truck that was stolen in that town ended up a few towns over in Derry after a suspect pushed its driver out of the truck and then crashed it a few miles away before being arrested. We meet Sean Cadieux, C-A-D-I-E-U-X. I assume that's Cadieux. Cadieux. 38-year-old from New Hampshire is facing a Class A felony charge of theft by unauthorized taking. That's a great phrase. After the Manchester Police Department said he allegedly stole a truck near Henry Wilson Elementary School on Tuesday evening last week. In a press release, the department said officers responded after they were first flagged down by an Amazon delivery driver. Police soon learned the driver that was heading that... All right, I totally misread this sentence here. Let's start again. Police learned from the driver that, while heading by the intersection of Wilson and Auburn Streets, the victim encountered a man, quote, acting erratically, who then jumped into the passenger side of his truck. Moving for a short time, the driver said he pulled into a parking lot on Lincoln Street where the suspect, later identified as Cadieux, pushed him out of the truck and then drove away with it. He apparently made his way to Derry before crashing the truck and then allegedly stole another vehicle before being arrested in the town of Hollis. Authorities said Cadieux may be facing several charges in other jurisdictions as the felony he was charged with so far only stems from the initial incident. So this guy's acting erratically, jumps in the Amazon truck. The driver, for some reason, continues to drive with it. I'm really not sure why. Finally pulls over, gets shoved out like it's a scene in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, like you're stealing the truck from someone.
Right.
The guy crashes it a town over, then steals another vehicle and gets arrested. He was doing the most with no real payoff at all.
Yeah. No, he didn't even pirate some packages. Like,
yeah, right?
Just wanted the truck.
That's where I figured this was going.
Yeah,
but
no
he's
kidding.
Just crashing cars.
Like, oh, you're going to tell me he made off with like a tablet or a bicycle or whatever you can get delivered on Amazon, which is everything. Some books. No, he just crashed a truck and jetted. Weird.
Remember when Amazon was mostly for books?
Yes.
There was a period of time where a lot of assignments for school when I was in like elementary, junior high, when I would forget a book at school when I was supposed to bring it home from homework. And we would use the look inside feature for books on Amazon. And that's how I did my homework. That happened more times than I would like to admit.
First thing I ever ordered on Amazon was when they released an edition of Total Baseball, like the full baseball encyclopedia. Yeah. They released an edition. It would have been the summer of 2004 because it was right before I went to college. And it had Barry Bonds on the front. It had a bunch of like writing, like recaps of like every season and every postseason series. And then, the full statistical index. Now, of course, Baseball Reference exists and you don't really need this, but I thought it was a dope thing to have. And it was the first thing I ever ordered on Amazon was that book. Brought it to college my freshman year. It sat on my desk. In a possibly related story, I did not have a great deal of success with the women on campus. At DePauw University.
But you thought it was cool.
I did. I thought it was super cool.
That's what matters.
Anyway, my what is wrong with you today? We go to Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, where a man was jailed on attempted homicide and related charges after allegedly firing a shot from a handgun during a confrontation over a fast food order. We get a lot of these stories.
A lot of them.
Stroud Area Regional Police say they were called for the incident at 8:42 p.m. Friday at Little Caesars Pizza in East Stroudsburg. The pizzeria's adult... Can we really call Little Caesars Pizza a pizzeria? That sounds like too fancy a word for what Little Caesars is.
Like, by a lot.
The pizzeria's adult...
It's a pizza store.
Yeah, the pizza shop.
Yes, that's what Little Caesars is.
The pizzeria's adult male manager and 2 juvenile employees were inside the business, and the suspect, 37-year-old William T. Pabon, was in the rear parking lot where he was taken into custody. Through interviews and reviews of surveillance video, detectives determined Pabon had called the business twice to complain about not receiving his order, which is interesting because most Little Caesars places aren't delivery places.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are, but some of them are not. Apparently, this one was. Pabon was argumentative and asked for the business's address, which was provided. He then showed up, entered the business, and began arguing with the manager. At some point, he removed a handgun from his jacket pocket while continuing to argue about not receiving his order. He approached the manager to gain access to the area behind the counter. The manager met Pabon at the access point between the employee and customer area, and Pabon fired one round from the gun. The round struck the manager's shoe, which damaged the shoe but missed his foot.
What?
Yeah, lucky guy.
He's a size 8 wearing a size 12, apparently.
Was he wearing Reebok pumps?
Yeah.
What was he wearing? The Pabon allegedly continued to yell at the manager and invited him outside to fight. The manager refused, probably because one guy had a gun and he didn't. And then Pabon left to get in his vehicle parked in the rear of the business. Pabon then exited his vehicle after seeing the manager observing him from the rear exit door. At this time, patrol officers arrived and took Pabon into custody. A search of Pabon turned up brass knuckles, and a 9mm handgun was found in plain view in his vehicle. The suspect did not have a valid license to carry a concealed firearm. He is awaiting arraignment on felony charges of attempted homicide, 2 counts of aggravated assault, terroristic threats, discharge of a firearm into occupied structure, and firearms not to be carried without a license. Plus, misdemeanor simple assault, reckless endangerment, possessing instruments of crime, that's dope, and possession of a prohibited offensive weapon.
So,
offensive weapon?
Offensive weapon, Denard Robinson.
Yes, he had an unauthorized Denard Robinson on his person.
So, 2 points I'd like to make. One, as always, do not commit a crime while in the process of committing another crime.
Right.
Secondly, why do you need brass knuckles? What possible situation could you get yourself in where you think, damn, I might need these?
Yeah, just, I keep them on me. Just in case I need to punch somebody.
Why? Are you in the mob? Are you doing jobs for your capo? Like, what is the point?
Here's the other thing, though. Like, okay, you didn't get your order. Man, that sucks. I guess you got to go and pick it up yourself. And I bet if you've ordered pizza at Little Caesars, they've got one probably hot and ready for you to take home. It's their entire business model. Like, you should have left with a pizza and been satisfied. Instead, you shot a man. Or shot at him, shot his shoe.
I also want to know what's going on with this man's shoes.
Yeah, it hit his shoe, but it didn't hit him.
He was wearing stilettos and hit the heel. Like, what? How does that work?
He got the Yeezys with the real, big soles.
Yeah. He's wearing platforms. He's got big, thick Vans on.
He got disco boots with, the fish swimming in the platforms.
Yeah, we got.
Is he wearing lifts?
It might be.
Yeah, like a Mel Gibson thing, or not Mel Gibson, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is the one where it's lifts.
Bullet hit his Dr. Scholl's insole. We've got a text from the 913. I thought this was the case. Brass knuckles are a felony. Like, what do you gain? I just don't get it. I really don't understand why you would ever have those. I'm going to vote for this story. Yeah. I don't understand the reasoning behind the guy stealing the Amazon truck and then another car as well. This guy went so above and beyond. And again, do not commit a crime while committing other crimes, which just by virtue of having these things in his car, he was doing.
Just, dude, it's just,
come on, man.
Just take one of the hot and ready pepperonis and get on with your evening.
See, again, that's how I feel about all these situations. Like, dude, it's not that big of a deal.
No.
Like, you want to swear, you want to curse, you want to let your feelings be heard. Fine, whatever. These people are gonna laugh it off anyway when you leave. But come on, there's no need to fire the gun. No need at all. That's my vote.
Pizza, gunplay is our winner today.
That is our winner here in What Is Wrong With You. We'll find a weekly winner coming up on tomorrow's show.
And then next week, Tuesday through Friday, maybe Wednesday through Friday, it's going to be our What Is Wrong With You championship.
In true What Is Wrong With You fashion, we have not yet determined how we're going to do our end-of-year tournament. But we will find a way, and we will have it in place.
We're just going to wing it, but we will bring back your old favorites, Family Funeral Feud, Accidental Splenectomy, Skeleton Sex House, and so many more.
We need like a sitcom reunion episode. All your favorites coming back. Skeleton Sex House. Accidental Splenectomy. With a special appearance by... Need to put one of those together. We do have to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll talk NFL MVP race next here on the program. Dan, I regret to inform you, we've got some Little Caesars hate on the Big O Tires text line. Dan's a big Little Caesars guy.
Listen, it's been a while since I patronized Little Caesars. I'm married now. That's part of it. But as someone who lived as a single gentleman for a very long time, here are the things about Little Caesars that I love, or loved, but still appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, very affordable.
Yes.
Number two, ready when you get there.
Yeah.
That's all I ask. Sometimes you just want a cheap pizza that's hot, that you can eat half of for dinner and then the other half of for lunch. Probably with some oat sodas. Again, I was single for a very long time into my adulthood. So I will tolerate very little Caesar slander.
That's fair. I get it. I couldn't even tell you the last time I had Little Caesars. My wife likes it, though, so I'm sure we'll get it at some point. Usually we go with something more local, but cheap is also nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cheap is great, but I also like to, patronize local businesses when it comes to pizza.
I'm married now is also the answer I have for a lot of food-related questions.
Right.
Wow, you suddenly eat real meals all the time. Yes, my wife likes to cook, and thought that my appetite and my diet were maybe not the most healthy, which she was probably right about.
You didn't get fast food for lunch every day this week.
No, I bring lunch from home now. And again, probably eat much healthier, a lot less salt in the diet now.
See, I agree with this from the 785. I actually agree with this. Their breadsticks are better than Italian Garden. I presume maybe mean Olive Garden. But yes.
Italian Garden is like the sitcom TV show version of Olive Garden.
Italian Garden.
Man, I can't remember eating Little Caesars breadsticks. I love Olive
Crazy
Garden
bread,
breadsticks,
man.
though.
Love crazy bread.
We've got another one here from the 402. Little Caesars is good. There you go.
Yes.
The people have spoken.
Yes. Maybe they got some good ones up in Omaha, up Omaha way.
Maybe they do. Real quick, wanted to get to this. This segment was pretty much derailed by the fact that Jalen Hurts might not play the rest of the season due to a sprained shoulder. He really doesn't need to at this point. The Eagles are going to be just fine with Gardner Minshew for a couple of weeks. I saw this tweet earlier today about Jalen Hurts' numbers versus Patrick Mahomes. And to paraphrase it to a degree, Mahomes has more total yards, that's passing and rushing, more yards per touch, more passing yards per drop back, more total touchdowns passing and running. He has given the ball away a grand total of 2 more times. More EPA per play, more total EPA, that's expected points added, higher QBR, higher passer rating. His DVOA is higher, and he's got a better PFF grade than Jalen Hurts. The only disadvantage is he's given the ball away 2 more times. This probably shouldn't have been as much of a debate as it has become in recent weeks. It's really not a debate now, and Vegas has indicated that to this point. And again, unless Josh Allen or Joe Burrow play the best football of their lives by miles and Mahomes really struggles the next 3 weeks, which against the Seahawks, Broncos, and Raiders, I really don't see happening.
Not likely, no.
It's over. Patrick Mahomes is going to win his second MVP. And I'm mad I did not bet on that when I woke up this morning.
Right.
Because it would have been far more profitable than betting on it now.
I got to say this for Mahomes, too. We talked about how frustrating that Chiefs performance felt yesterday because, again, it's a trend of the Chiefs not maybe playing the way they should or playing down to their level of competition, however you want to phrase it. But coming out of the Denver game, there were a lot of guys behind microphones, behind cameras, who said, hey, I got to do better. I got to play better. Mahomes was one of them because he threw 3 picks in the Denver game, and he authored a masterpiece on Sunday, an absolute masterpiece of quarterback play, and full marks to Patrick Mahomes, other than the one drop snap that he had in the game, which was just a weird play like you never see.
Mm-hmm.
You never see that from most pros, never mind Patrick Mahomes. But other than that, I mean, to go 36 of 41 is just absurd.
And again, that is the most efficient, or I shouldn't say efficient, the most accurate day in NFL history with that many attempts. No one has ever had 87.8% completion percentage on 40-plus passes before until yesterday. And the game went to overtime. How?
I know it. Just none of it makes sense. If you just looked at the box score, like the Chiefs ran 75 offensive plays, 76 actually, I think.
You had 2 guys catch 10 passes. Your running backs were great. Although I am a little miffed that Pacheco again was limited to 15 carries. Are they worried about his workload?
Yeah, don't fumble.
Yeah, I suppose.
Bit of punishment.
Yeah.
Sit there and think about what you've done.
I would be okay. Let me rephrase. Let me revisit this already. I would have been more upset if McKinnon wasn't playing as well as he was playing. Because McKinnon had a really good game too. He is such a special player.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of keeping him healthy. And thankfully, for most of his brief, albeit Chiefs career, he has been healthy, and keeping him in a limited role until the end of the year and eventually into the playoffs is really smart coaching by the Chiefs. Really smart personnel management.
Real quick before we hit the bottom of the hour break here, from the YouTube comments, got a shout out to Barbara, who did bet on Mahomes for MVP.
Well done.
The Monday after NFL honors lunch on Barbara.
Yeah, yes. Hit us up. Let us know what you're buying, Barbara. No, that's a good bet. That was a very smart one. That'll do it for this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. We still have one more hour to get to. A ton of headlines from around the sports world, both local and nationally. We'll talk about what was probably, without doubt, the best sports weekend of the year, maybe of the last couple of years this weekend, and we will look ahead to Monday Night Football, the Packers and the Rams, probably an elimination game for the Packers tonight. It's all coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. 1 hour to go on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. I'm Brendan Dorzinski. He is Dan Lucero. We're with you up until 6 o'clock this evening. No 580 Preps High School Basketball Coaches Club tonight. There's no basketball this week. All the schools are off. So, off from games anyway. So, no Coaches Club this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with the next edition of the High School Coaches Club here on 580 WIBW. It'll be a girls basketball edition next time we have the program as well. So we've got Chiefs Kingdom coming up at 6 o'clock instead. Coming up here in this final hour of the show, we will get you our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot in just a moment. We'll also look back on the insane weekend that was, and we'll get you our picks for Monday Night Football tonight. Something of an elimination game for the Green Bay Packers. They're probably out of the playoff hunt anyway, but if they lose this game, they are cooked. So that is all coming up this hour. Of course, if you want to be involved in the show, you can let us know on the Big O Tires text line, whatever you're thinking about the show today, 785-272-9429. And you can chime in on YouTube as well. Our channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. Comment section, wide open. Let us know what you are thinking. Awesome interaction from the whole crew on YouTube and on the text line today. Appreciate all you guys chiming in. And if you've missed any of the show up until this point, you can find the hour-by-hour breakdown on our website, 580WIBW.com. Just hover over the podcast tab and then click on 580 Sports Talk. That's where you'll find the podcast version of the show. With that, let's get into it with our 580 Sports Talk headlines, brought to you, as always, by Blue Dot of Kansas. You can go check them out online at bluedotkansas.com. It is going to get so freaking cold over the next couple of days.
Yeah,
if you are wanting to make sure that your home is as comfortable as can be coming up for the coldest parts of the year, hit up our good friends at Blue Dot. They'll make sure your home is feeling as comfortable as can be, including with their with their peak performance safety check. They'll check your heating, your cooling, and your plumbing all once a year, all for just one low price. Hit them up on their website, bluedotkansas.com. First headline of the day for me, some major news in the NFL, some major news for the favorites in the NFC. Jalen Hurts has suffered a sprain to his throwing shoulder, suffered it yesterday against the Chicago Bears. According to the writing of Tim McManus of ESPN, their Eagles writer, his status for Saturday's game is in question when they take on the Dallas Cowboys. However, according to reports, insiders, whatever, it is not expected to be a long-term injury. And again, according to McManus, anytime missed will be about making sure that strength and functionality in his shoulder is back to 100% for the long haul. To me, that says they're going to play Gardner Minshew. And honestly, I don't know why you wouldn't just play Minshew until the end of the regular season. Some other background on the info. The injury allegedly occurred near the end of the third quarter Sunday against the Bears. Defensive lineman Trevis Gipson of the Bears hit Hurts and drove him down to the ground after a short run. Hurts stayed down for a few moments, but then got up and continued playing. I saw that on Red Zone and thought, ooh, that doesn't look good. Hope he's okay. It was a rough game for the Eagles. Chiefs weren't the only team that struggled with a crappy team with a bad roster this week, although the Eagles also did come away with a victory.
And at least that crappy roster has Justin Fields playing quarterback.
That is true. That is 100% true. Little bit better than Davis Mills. I'm not ready to go in and say he's way better, but he's at least a little better than Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll. This is a big deal. Hurts was, I think, the number 2 favorite to win the MVP. That's certainly not going to happen at this point if he misses any amount of time with how well Mahomes is playing. As long as he's healthy for the playoffs, I think they'll be fine. And like Matt Verderame told us earlier on the show, the Eagles have one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I'd venture to say they have the best backup quarterback in the NFL. Minshew doesn't have great arm strength, but he's smart, usually doesn't turn it over too much. He's been in the system for a couple of years now. Minshew, you could probably argue, might deserve to start in a couple plays. Like, Houston's obviously tanking, so they wouldn't add a player like that. But teams with real bad quarterbacks, you could do a whole lot worse than Gardner Minshew. So I think Philly's going to be just fine. But again, if you're Jalen Hurts, you got to make sure that within the next 4 or 5 weeks, when they eventually do play, because I think they will get the number 1 seed in the NFC, you just got to make sure he's back at 100%. And as long as he is, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm with you on Minshew. That is for sure. He's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. And the Eagles are so talented that I don't think they'll necessarily miss a beat. They got 2 great wide receivers. They got a bunch of good running backs. They'll be fine.
An incredible offensive line.
Yeah, they'll be fine with Minshew. It sort of feels like, honestly, the Super Bowl year for the Eagles, where they got out to the great start and Carson Wentz was playing like an MVP and they ripped up his knee. And Nick Foles came in, and Nick Foles was like a proven backup, a proven game managing backup, and just kind of had to plug in and drive the ship because there were really, really good players around him. He just had to not, steer it into the side of a mountain, and he managed to do that. And they won the Super Bowl. Hopefully, this is not a season-ending injury for Jalen Hurts. Certainly doesn't sound like it is. So it's not a total parallel.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my first thought was, boy, it kind of feels like, the Eagles are following a very familiar script, at least to this point. First Blue Dot of Kansas headline for me, we go to the latest AP Top 25 men's basketball poll, where Purdue is number 140 of the 61 first place votes going to the Boilermakers as they retain their spot atop the top 25. The other 21 first place votes go to UConn, who jumps a spot to number 2 in the country. Virginia, the big faller out of the top 5 this week, they dropped to 6 after they lost at home to Houston, who moves from number 5 to number 3 in the country. Kansas up 4 spots after their home win over Indiana, and they are back into the top 5 at number 4. Arizona rounds out the top 5. They also moved up 4 spots this week. Virginia, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, and Arkansas round out the top 10. Alabama, a big faller, 5 spots after they lost to Gonzaga, who jumps to 11th. Ahead of Baylor, UCLA, Duke, and Mississippi State. Still undefeated under former Wichita State assistant Chris Jans in his first year in Stark Vegas. 16th is Illinois, followed by Wisconsin, Indiana, Kentucky, and TCU, rounding out the top 20. Final 5 in the top 25 are Virginia Tech, Miami, Auburn, Marquette, and Arizona State. Marquette and Arizona State newcomers this week. Kansas State received 5 votes in this week's top 25. We had somebody, I believe it was Vance earlier on the YouTube comments on our stream, ask why K-State hasn't broken into the top 25 yet. And I do think that it is a little bit of a reputation thing. It's hard for programs who were really down the year before to gain the credibility to move into the top 25 with the voters, for lack of a better way to put it. Also, it has not exactly been a murderer's row. They don't have a signature win, I think is the other thing, the best way to put it. Like they've beaten some like quality programs, but they don't have a signature win yet that would have made the average, I think, observer of college basketball raise their eyebrows and go, oh, wow, Kansas State. They beat X or they beat Y. Their best win is, I think it's still Nevada, or is it LSU now?
Let's see here. LSU, according to the KenPom numbers, is 75th in the country. Nevada's 85th. So it is LSU slightly. But yeah, I mean, K-State's non-conference strength of schedule is currently ranked 229th in the country.
And so that's why, I mean, that's where you're at there, that the reason that Kansas State hasn't quite cracked the top 25 yet. Do also want to mention that the Kansas women remain in the AP top 25. They're up 2 spots to number 20 in the country as they remain unbeaten. Kansas State also receiving votes in the women's top 25 as well. So looking like it'll be a good season of women's hoops in the cradle of hoops, Kansas.
Shout out, by the way, to Zakiya Franklin of KU, your Big 12 Women's Basketball Player of the Week this week. Very cool for Brandon Schneider's group. I think the pollsters on the men's side, I think they took the week off. Like, Illinois went up, even though, and I know the final score was somewhat lopsided. They beat Alabama A&M 68-47. That was a single-digit game, and it's sometimes like a one-possession game for multiple portions of the second half. Illinois played terribly in that game, and yet they went up 2 spots. Neither Kentucky nor Indiana should be ranked right now. And, if you're Indiana, there's no shame in going to Kansas and losing to Kansas. Nobody wins at Allen Fieldhouse, generally speaking. They really got crushed. They've now lost 3 of 4. two of them to good teams back-to-back, Arizona and KU. But you also got a loss to Rutgers in there. Like, they're really, really struggling. Kentucky should not be ranked. Kentucky's not good right now. They're not. I don't know.
They're in fact, they're quite bad.
I don't know how much time you spent just perusing, the message board world or the college basketball Twitter world this weekend. There are some fans in Big Blue Nation that I think are about to stage a mutiny against Calipari. I really think that is coming. And it's not entirely his fault, but also, like,
it's a lot his fault.
At some point, only recruiting guys on the pitch that make you a lottery pick. Eventually, like, you need a real team.
You need to run like an offense that has been updated in the last 10 years.
I get it, but also, there's a balance between you can't be the best every single year, and 2 years ago you missed the tournament, and then last year you were a 2 seed and lost to St. Peter's, and this year you're flat as hell. They are, to me, the Ohio State of college basketball. Where, like, I know Ohio State's good. I don't really want to watch them. Like, there's not really fun in watching Ohio State. Like, they're an NFL factory, even more so than an Alabama or a Georgia is an NFL factory. Like, Georgia runs cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They just have freaks who do it, so they just pound on lesser teams every week. Like, Kentucky's going to win plenty of games, but there's not really a lot of cohesion. Their offensive game plan is bad. They're not really fun to watch. They just have all these guys that we're told are going to be good NBA players.
Yeah.
That doesn't interest me all that much as just a fan of college basketball.
No, I'm particularly like this year's team. They don't have, like, there's not an Anthony Davis. There's not a John Wall.
Mm-hmm.
There's not, like, Oscar Tshiebwe's a great college player.
Yeah.
And I like Oscar Tshiebwe quite a bit. I like his story. He seems like a good kid, but I don't have, there's not like that one talent on their team that makes you go, oh boy, I got to see this guy play. Like, not even like a De'Aaron Fox or a Malik Monk. Like, they have that guy.
And there's the worrisome thing. This is a more veteran Kentucky team.
Yeah.
This should be the team that figures it out, but they still can't.
Yeah. Yeah. It starts to make Calipari look a little funny in the light.
Also, they are down a little bit. Put New Mexico in the poll. New Mexico's undefeated. Put them in the poll. Come on. We're not even to conference play yet for most conferences. Put the Lobos in. Who cares? Next headline for me on our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. Some big recruiting news for the Kansas Jayhawks on the football front today. KU got a commitment from 3-star, in some places 4-star, tight end Jaden Ham, one of the top 10 players in the state of Kansas, who is a long-time commit to Arkansas. Like, over a year he spent committed to the Arkansas Razorbacks. He decommitted yesterday just after an official visit to KU. He was actually at the KU basketball game on Saturday. Decommitted Sunday, said in his decommitment announcement, I will be making my commitment within the week, and he made it today. It was like 24 hours later. He signed, had a ceremony at Eudora High School. So, yeah, a Eudora kid just down K10 from Lawrence, so a pretty local kid. That is a big deal for KU. The reason he decommitted from Arkansas, his position coach at Arkansas and main recruiter was Dowell Loggins, who spent many years in the NFL with the Bears, among other teams.
He was an offensive coordinator for a lot of years.
He took an in-house visit in Eudora to Jaden Ham, and then less than a week later left Arkansas and ended up as the new offensive coordinator at South Carolina. Reportedly, that did not sit very well, and you can understand why. So he decommits from Arkansas, commits to KU. That is now 2 top 10 state commitments for KU in football for the first time since 2018. That's a big deal. And neither of those guys turned in anything at KU. That's a really big deal for Kansas. K-State still runs recruiting in the state. There's really no denying that. I mean, go look at the recruiting rankings in the state of Kansas. It's K-State, Notre Dame, Colorado, K-State, KU, K-State, all the way down. But KU needed to make inroads in a couple different places, both locally in Northeast Kansas, in the Kansas City area, and down in Wichita. And KU has done a much better job of that in the last 2 years, especially this year. And look, K-State's still going to dominate because they've been the dominant force in the state for a long time, and that's great. And that's what K-State has built its brand on, getting small-town kids in Kansas, getting under-recruited Johnson County and Wichita kids to come to K-State. And they're going to keep doing that. KU had to do something, though. This is a really important step for the program. That's a big deal. 2 top 10 kids from the state.
Yeah, big step. And both of them, had committed to other schools and decided to go elsewhere. And obviously there are always there's more than one thing that happens to lead that to happen. But you got to believe that the fact that Kansas returned to viability and respectability as a football program this year played a major role. That now feels like a place where you can go to a bowl game and beat some teams in the Big 12. And Kansas kids are going to start taking a little more ownership in that program, particularly, if they maybe grew up a KU fan, which a lot of kids of this vintage probably didn't grow up KU football fans because, why would you?
If you're an 18-year-old right now, so you would have been born in 2004, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
KU was good when you were an infant and, learning to speak.
Right.
And then by the time you were probably conscious of what was going on around you, it started to suck. You turned 5. KU went 5-7, lost 7 games to end that year, and have been awful since.
Yeah.
You got to win. It's a cycle.
Yep. One last thing KU can do to help themselves, and I agree 100% with our texter from the 785 and the Big O Tires text line. Quit playing your home openers on Fridays.
That does stop next year.
Yeah.
They will play on Saturday, September 2nd.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Yes.
Get off of those Fridays.
Well, it's dumb. If your whole thing is we want to go recruit our state, we want to show the kids that we care, except on the first Friday of the season, we will not be able to see any of them play. And none of them can come to our games either. That doesn't make sense. That just does not make a whole lot of sense. We'll talk to Michael Swain about this coming up on tomorrow's show, but this is a pretty big deal for KU football. That's a good get.
Next headline for me, we go to the baseball hot stove. Some happenings for the weekend.
It's cooking.
The shortstop market, the star shortstop market, is all spoken for. The last of the big 4 shortstops that were on the free agent market has found a new home for Dansby Swanson, the all-star from formerly the Atlanta Braves. It is the north side of Chicago. He's a Cub, 7 years, $177 million. The final financial details. Apparently nobody else was close to offering that kind of money. Swanson coming off of a career year. 29,
love to hear that.
Yeah. So coming off a career year, 29 dingers, elite defender at the 6. And now will play for the Cubs. And Brendan, you and I were talking about this off the air, but between Swanson and Nico Horner, who's going to move off a shortstop to second base, the Cubs will, if nothing else, have arguably the best keystone combination defensively in all of baseball in 2023.
And that's valuable.
Yeah, very valuable for the sake of run prevention when you've got a mostly young pitching staff with a couple of veterans like they've signed Jamison Taillon. That was made official today.
Mm-hmm.
They got Marcus Stroman, Kyle Hendricks, a lot of ground ball guys. A lot of contact ground ball guys.
Yep.
Yeah. You want guys who are going to turn those ground balls into outs. And Dansby Swanson is that dude. Also from the weekend, a bit of a trade of sorts when you have 2 veteran free agents going in opposite directions. J.D. Martinez, a 1-year deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Justin Turner, longtime Dodger, longtime favorite in Los Angeles, is going to Boston on a 2-year deal to handle, I don't know what he's going to handle over there. DH, I guess. He's not playing third.
Sounds like DH.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen. Boston needed offensive talent. I was hoping Justin Turner would end up a Cub.
A fun fact about Justin Turner is that he has a lifetime 687 batting average against the Colorado Rockies. Do not look that up. I
believed you for a second there. I really did.
I believe myself. He was a Rocky killer. I'm so glad now they got the unbalanced schedule. We are going to have to see him, but we have to see him 18 times.
I don't like the new schedule. I think I've said that before, but I don't like the new schedule.
No, I hate it. Baseball's not the NBA. We don't need to play everybody. Leagues used to mean something. The American League and the National League used to be distinct. They had distinct ways that they played baseball. We used to have a country, a proper country.
I just don't really understand the point of it. Right?
So that
what's gained?
So that every owner every 2 years gets the benefit of hosting 3 games against the New York Yankees, or the Boston Red Sox, or the Chicago Cubs, or the Los Angeles Dodgers. Any of the brands that guarantee you butts in seats, you get that every other year now.
It's lame.
At least.
It's super lame. We have a text in from the 785 that says, wait, the Cubs are opening the wallet. Yeah, it's not something, you needed to add someone. I don't think Swanson is a superstar, but he's a good player who has gotten better as an offensive threat. He's like a He's an average to slightly above average offensive player. He's a great defender. By all accounts, he's a great dude. Probably also really wanted to come to Chicago because his wife is a professional athlete in Chicago.
Yes, Mal Pugh, former World Cup winner with the United States women's national team.
Can you imagine how much that would suck if you and your spouse lived in different cities? Like, how do you even get married at that point? That'd be really difficult. Like, this is totally unrelated to sports, but like Dansby Swanson lives and plays in Atlanta. Mal Pugh lives and plays at least part-time in Chicago. Like, that would be really hard.
Yeah.
How do you get married in that situation?
Ask J.J. Watt and his wife.
Yeah. Yeah, because she plays in Chicago too.
I think that's right.
As does Julie Ertz. Wow, that team's really good, huh? Well, Julie Ertz at one point in time played in Chicago. I don't know if she still does. Yeah, I don't know how that works. That seems like it would be extremely difficult. This needed to do something, though. So Swanson deal's nice. If you could get like a Trey Mancini, too, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, they feel like they're a bat or two away, but run prevention-wise, I think they're frisky in that division. They're not a great team in that division. I don't think the Cardinals are a great team. I don't think the Brewers are a great team. The Pirates are a Ponzi scheme, and the Reds are also not trying. So, like, there's no reason the Cubs can't work their way back into Central Division contention in 2023. I believe that.
One other quick headline for me from the NFL. It pertains to a team that I care about a great deal and a team that'll be playing tonight. The Green Bay Packers have released old friend wide receiver Sammy Watkins. He was placed on waivers today. Running back Patrick Taylor was signed in his place off the practice squad.
Let me just answer the question that I know some Chiefs fans are asking. No.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that to yourself.
And I don't think they will. He's cooked. He is toast. He is done. So I had someone tweet at me, maybe, this is an opportunity for the Packers to play some younger guys. Samori Toure, who's former Nebraska Cornhusker, who's had some bright moments this year. He'll get to play more. And then Sammy can go sign with a contender like the Bills or the Chiefs. No contender is touching him with a 90-foot pole.
Maybe the Cowboys. They love formerly famous wide receivers. They brought T.Y. Hilton in. T.Y. Hilton's more done than a medium well steak.
He's a speed receiver with no speed who's hurt all the time.
Yeah. He will always have 2019.
He couldn't get playing time on a team whose number one receiver is Alan Lazard. Okay. I like Alan Lazard. He's a 2 or a 3. He's not a 1, and he couldn't play for that team. People were so indignant to me about you don't even know what you're talking about. I do. I watched him for 3 years. He was cooked for 16 games in 2019. He had one great game and one great play, and that was his season. And it worked out for the Chiefs. Yeah. He sucked after that. I was right, and I'm going to take my victory lap on that happily. We have a 785 texter who says, "Dear God, no." I feel the same way. That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. They're brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas, who you can visit online at blue.kansas.com. We will take a time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, a recap of what was without a doubt, greatest sports weekend of the year. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. 6:32 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you. Again, no 580 Preps High School Basketball Coaches Club tonight. That will return after the new year when high school basketball games resume here on 580 WIBW and, frankly, just resume in general. We'll get to a little look ahead to Monday Night Football here coming up in just a moment. But before we look ahead, we should look back on what was undeniably, one of the best sports weekends in my lifetime. Like, it was truly remarkable how good all of the content was. The NFL action was incredible, truly incredible. We had that one dud Saturday afternoon. With the Saturday games, you had the biggest comeback in NFL history. You had a just really well-played, entertaining game with the best scenes possible in Buffalo in the Dolphins-Bills game. You had great game after great game after great game on Sunday. I mean, sir, I'm just looking at the scores right now. Close game, Falcons-Saints. It was not a good game, but it was a close game. Steelers-Panthers was a one-score game. Eagles-Bears was one score. Chiefs game ended on a walk-off touchdown. The Cowboys and Jags ended on a walk-off touchdown. The Jags, by the way, are like one of the most fun teams in the NFL now. That is surprising.
Also, don't forget, Dallas blew a 27-10 lead in that game.
So funny.
Tricked it right off.
Low scoring, but Lions-Jets was a good game. Broncos-Cardinals was on meth. That was not, again, a good game. It wasn't a clean game, but it was a methy game. The Patriots-Raiders game ended on the worst play in the history of the NFL.
I'm trying to think. I am still, like, my mind is blown by the end of the Cardinals-Raiders game. I am trying to think of if there is a stupider possible way to lose a game, than with the game tied and no time left on the clock, deciding to run, as Scott Van Pelt calls it, pitchy woo-woo, and then just delicately lofting the ball directly to somebody on the other team with a defensive lineman with only the quarterback to beat.
I was telling you this earlier. Every single part of that sequence is funnier than the last. There's no well, first, Jonathan Vilma on the broadcast going, so is anyone going to tackle him as Ramondre Stevenson is running? Gets a little chuckle. There's no reason for Stevenson to pitch it in the first place.
There's no reason to run a play. Take a knee and go to overtime.
Take a knee. Just dive on it. Then it gets to Jacoby Myers. Insane to throw the ball there.
His brain
insane.
His brain just breaks.
And then his explanation, I saw that Mac was open. Open for what?
What was he going to do? Was he going to juke Chandler Jones? Chandler Jones put him into the Earth's core.
If you throw the ball to Mac Jones, he doesn't get quarterback protection. You're not getting a dead ball and 15 yards and a Hail Mary chance, bro. He is going to be turned into dust if he catches that ball. The throw is nowhere near Mac Jones.
No.
Chandler Jones, to catch it, well, he had just given up on the play.
Yeah,
he wasn't chasing down the runner. He wasn't blocking up. He was just giving up.
Yeah, he's standing next to Mac Jones. They could have been exchanging recipes for all we know. The ball just floats delicately into his hands, and he turns around, and only McCorkle Jones between him and a game-winning touchdown.
Dribbled his head off the turf like we've never seen before. Like he was about to cross someone over and drive to the hole, just bounces his head off the ground and races to the end zone. It's a former Patriot who gets the score. It's Josh McDaniels' team that scores to win over Bill Belichick.
Just
unthinkable.
Like, everybody on Twitter exploded when it happened. I wasn't watching it live. Just talking about, LMAO and oh my God. And I said, boy, I'm prepared for something really wild. I wasn't prepared. There's no preparing you for how that game ended, and to lose a game like that, the stupidest way I think you can lose it. I can't even think about. It'd be like if a tied hockey game, and when the delayed penalty happens and your goalie skates out of your net, you get the added attacker on delayed penalty. Like if you just turned around and shot the puck into your own net with no time left.
That's about the closest comparison. Who was the dude who shot the ball in his own basket to get a triple-double that one time?
Oh, no, he tried to shoot off his own to get a rebound.
Yeah,
Ricky Davis.
That's who it was. Yeah, like, this is beyond that. Like, this is the dumbest thing. We'll never see it again. Like, this is the dumbest play in NFL history.
It would be like if you had, like, a putt from 6 feet to win the Masters and then pulled out your driver and hit the ball in the opposite direction.
And said, watch this. You've been watching film? Watch this. Just launched it.
It'll never make sense.
It never, ever, ever. And again, the fact that it was the Raiders benefiting from the Patriots. If you had said the other way, like, yes, it would have been an all-time hilarious play. But like, yeah, no, that's the Raiders. That sounds about right. No, it was the Patriots doing it to the Raiders. Just unbelievable. So the NFL action was incredible. Oh, and yeah, by the way, Justin Herbert heroics at the end of a game to win a one-score game over the Titans to vault them back into the 6th seed. The Bengals were down 17-0, then scored 34 unanswered points, and Tom Brady's team had a meltdown, a total meltdown. It was just incredible entertainment up and down the schedule.
And then the Giants, with their biggest win since the Eli Manning era, holding off the Manders in an exciting game, goal line stand to essentially win that game.
With some true chicanery from the officials. Shenanigans, to say the least. I mean, it was an unbelievable NFL weekend. We had 6 bowl games on Saturday to, admittedly, varying levels of competitiveness. The Florida-Oregon State game, we thought that game was going to be close. I reneged on betting Florida to cover, and I instead bet the under. Smart call by your boy.
I wish you'd told me.
That one felt good. Okay, now I feel bad about that. I'm sorry. That one felt good off the hand. The Fresno State win over Washington State, that was not super close. But the other games were fun. BYU won by a point on a failed 2-point conversion.
SMU went for 2 to try and win and didn't. Southern Miss and Rice was back and forth action.
Yep.
The Celebration Bowl was a
nuts
banger of a football game. Jackson State and North Carolina Central. North Carolina Central winning essentially the HBCU national championship, in part because the one white kid on the field dropped a touchdown in overtime for Jackson State. That was a little funny.
I don't know if I should say this. I don't want to make this sound inappropriate, but I feel like if you went to an HBCU school, like you might feel out of place if you were that guy. Again, I probably shouldn't have. But
look at the baseball rosters at most HBCUs. Just I'm going to leave it at that. Just look at the baseball rosters.
So the college football was very entertaining as well. If you're a KU fan, you got KU whomping Indiana. If you're a K-State fan, you got to beat Nebraska. I know that felt good. Even though, wasn't at home technically, but great crowd. You got to beat Nebraska. I'm sure that was fun. And beat Fred Hoiberg, so it's like a double whammy. Although that probably means more to KU than K-State fans, I would guess.
Yeah, probably.
You had some other great college basketball games. The North Carolina-Ohio State game was great.
You had big-time matchups like Houston, Virginia, Gonzaga, Alabama, Kentucky, UCLA. Like, it was the first, marquee day of college basketball, that didn't involve, an MTE.
I'm no Missouri fan. They wanted a buzzer beater.
Yeah. Mizzou did win on a buzzer beater, so you have that if you're a Tiger fan. Bonkers play, too.
Yeah.
Not just a run-of-the-mill, he made a 10-foot jump. No, a miraculous 30-foot banked-in shot that almost didn't happen for the win there.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I was about to say, and we haven't even gotten to the best game of the weekend, the World Cup final.
Went down to penalty kicks.
The greatest World Cup final of all time. People who have followed soccer longer than me have said it, so I feel comfortable enough saying it. An absolutely bonkers sporting event. People who are not soccer people but are sports people were getting very wrapped up in the drama of that match. In case you missed it, Argentina victorious on penalties. Argentina had a 2-0 lead after the first half. France scored twice in 91 seconds with 10 minutes to go in regulation time to tie the match. In extra time, both teams scored. It looked like Lionel Messi, the greatest player of all time, had scored a cup-winning goal, and then it didn't happen because France got a penalty, and Kylian Mbappe, who might be the next greatest player of all time, finished off a hat trick with a penalty goal to tie it again. And then Argentina won on penalty kicks, which are the most high-tension thing that exists in sports, penalty kick shootouts to decide soccer finals. And that was a game that wore people out before the NFL slate even started.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, thank God. I could take the edge off and watch the Chiefs mollywop the Texans. No, there was no taking the edge off.
No.
The edge was there just nonstop for the entire weekend. But no, it was a killer World Cup final. Just a phenomenal game, and really cool for Lionel Messi to check the final box on what is one of the great sports careers in modern history, to secure that World Cup championship for Argentina. That was really, really neat.
We watched the penalty kicks, not because I was dying to watch them, but just because I was waiting to put on the NFL games.
You want to hear Jay Glazer's injury reports, and here's some dude named Montiel kicking a penalty kick for Argentina. I'm sure that was confusing for a lot of people.
I was like, oh yeah, sure, we'll watch this. I guess my wife's not into soccer either, and we're like, yeah, sure, this is cool. And it was a thrilling ending. There's no doubt about that. France penalty kicks, bad. Ugh, not good.
Emi Martinez for Argentina. That's his specialty, stopping penalties.
Pretty good talent to have.
He plays the mind games, and then did something very hilarious and not safe for work with the Golden Glove trophy for goalkeeper of the tournament.
Yes.
Some all-time great photographs.
Slightly vulgar. Slightly.
As I was explaining to my wife, every man has the tendency, like the desire to take something that is even like slightly phallic and do that with it.
Happened many times before. It'll happen many times after.
Most of us are able to suppress it after we turn like 16.
Yeah,
but
I would say so. But hey, time of your life. Go enjoy it however you want to enjoy it.
Right.
Also, for those interested in such a thing, the NCAA Volleyball National Championship was this weekend as well. Texas they were close competitive sets, although Texas did win 3-0. That's a really good Texas team. Yeah,
awesome Texas team. Congratulations to former Shawnee Heights Thunderbird Amaya Tillman, though, for Louisville on a tremendous year. She was a huge part of that Louisville team.
Yeah, so just incredible. I said it, and I feel like it may have been some prisoner of the moment stuff, but with all that excitement, championship level stuff, you get a once in 4 years event, you get history from the NFL level, you really did get what'll probably be one of the best weekends of the whole decade, sports-wise. It's gonna be hard to match it.
Yep. If you had enough TVs, it was nonstop. It was a lot of fun, and one of those weekends that makes you wish like you could just take the mic hot, like at 10 o'clock, like after Giants Manders. I was ready to go.
What are the odds we get equally good NFL content next weekend? We actually
minimal.
have some pretty good matchups.
Broncos Rams on Nickelodeon.
That's true. We do have a Nickelodeon game on Christmas Day.
If Broncos Rams on Nickelodeon outrates the NBA quadruple header or quintuple header on ABC, that will be it might be time then for the NBA to shorten their regular season.
Yes.
That might be a cue.
I always believe, well, not always, but going back to the year where the NBA shortened its season because of the work stoppage, Christmas Day as your opening day of basketball makes a lot of sense. It really does make a lot of sense for that to be opening day for the NBA. Even if you wanted to make it not 66 games, but like 72 or something, go a little bit later into the summer, like Christmas to the 4th of July, essentially. That makes a lot of sense, I think, if you're the NBA. Instead, they're going to get outdrawn by all these NFL games. Like, Buccaneers Cardinals is going to put whatever the primetime NBA game is in a body bag. It's not going to look pretty for the NBA.
I think the late game is, I want to say it's Nuggets Suns. So that's what I'll be watching.
Yeah, Nuggets Suns is 9:30. Grizz Warriors is 7 o'clock. Love me some Ja Morant. There's no Steph in that game.
Even without Steph, like Grizz Warriors, like the Grizzlies are super fun.
They're going to get massacred by the Bucks and Cardinals, like doubled up in the ratings.
Hey, look, if you'd rather watch Colt McCoy than Ja Morant, then there is not much the NBA can do to convince you to watch his product.
It might not be Colt McCoy either. It might be Trace McSorley.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're right.
Penn State legend. We've got to take a quick break. We'll look ahead to Monday Night Football after this on 580 Sports Talk. football coming up this evening. Packers versus Rams. The Packers are favored by 7.5, which seems like way too much, even at home. I know the Rams suck, but man, we're not very good either. This is an elimination game. If the Packers lose, they are done. I don't know about mathematically, but for all intents and purposes, they are done for the year. I think the Packers win. I think it'll be closer than 7.5, to be honest with you. I'm not sure what kind of scoring this will look, or what the scoring will look like. But Baker Mayfield's going to have more than 2 days to learn the playbook, so maybe the Rams are going to have turned a corner.
Well, I guess that is the big question. Like, what does Mayfield look like?
Mm-hmm.
Does he look like a quarterback who has really good command of that offense? I mean, they still got no playmakers, right? They still can't really run the ball. They still got no big playmakers at wide receiver. There's still no Aaron Donald on the defensive side of the ball. It's hard to imagine that the Rams in this state can beat the Packers. But we did just see the last time we saw the Rams, we saw them win. So
that's true.
That is the question. If you would like to make a wager on that 7.5 number or any other bets, your friends at FanDuel are the place to go. And Santa Barkley is back. I'm guessing that refers to Charles.
Ho, ho, ho.
Probably not former St. John's star Eric. Santa Barkley is back. Probably not Saquon. And this year, he's giving new FanDuel customers exactly what you asked for. Unwrap the gift of a no-sweat first bet, up to $2,500 back in free bets when you sign up with my promo code Lucero. That's $2,500 back if your first bet doesn't win. Now is the perfect time to give FanDuel a shot. The app is easy to use. They're always giving you great promotions, and when you win, you get paid instantly. So see for yourself why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and get in the holiday spirit with a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500 back in free bets from Santa Barkley, probably not former Everton midfielder Ross, when you sign up with promo code Lucero. That's Lucero. You must be 21 and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. Refund issues now. Withdrawable free bets expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com. Probably not former USC quarterback Matt.
Probably not. No, he's still in the league, I think. He's still on a roster somewhere, I think. One text in from the 785 says, that's got to sting as an owner to say the Packers are bad. Yeah, it does. It does suck. We're going to try hard, though. I believe in our guys. The boys are going to be ready to play. Another one from the 785 says, if the game's in Green Bay, the weather is brutal right now. Yeah, upper Midwest, gonna get hammered over the next couple of days, which is great if you are driving to the city of Chicago by chance and a blizzard is coming Wednesday into Thursday. Wouldn't that be great and maybe a little concerning? But yeah, it is in Green Bay tonight. They will be at Lambeau. It is 14 degrees right now, so bundle up if you're heading to Lambeau Field. We, right now, we're going to head into a break. We'll take a timeout, come back, wrap things up with the final word here on 580 Sports. Time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk on this Victory Monday. Dan, take us home with the final word.
Just an unbelievable sports weekend, the kind that makes us feel blessed to do what we do, which is talk sports for a living, both experiencing it in person or experiencing it on television. It was pretty much uniformly awesome from top to bottom. A lot of great things and great memories, I think, that we'll take away from this weekend that will last for a very long time to come. An outstanding sports weekend for the penultimate sports weekend of the year.
Final word for me is that my favorite NFL team plays football tonight. And after a great football weekend, you know what I would enjoy more than anything else in the whole world, guys? Can you please win, comfortably? That would be nice. It was so enjoyable to watch all these close games, and now I am hoping that the team that I'm an owner of, people do forget that, can come away with a nice, easy win and keep our playoff hopes alive, at least for one more week going into Christmas Day against the Dolphins coming up next Sunday. That does it for 580 Sports Talk. We are back coming up tomorrow from 3 until 6. Michael Swain will join us as we talk all things KU in the 23rd Street Brewery Jayhawk Weekly. We've got a dive into the impact of the Chiefs' turnovers this year. We talked about that with Matt Verderame earlier. Dan did some research into how much Chiefs' turnovers have affected games and scores this season. We'll get to that and so much more. So join us tomorrow from 3 until 6. But until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. If you missed any of the show, head to 580wibw.com. Check out the podcast page, and we'll join you tomorrow at 3 o'clock for another edition of 580 Sports Talk.